Hello everybody, and welcome back to the LJL Officially Unofficial Cast. I am still your host with the most, Alex, otherwise known as Lexi by MaskedSwan on the internet. I am, of course, joined by the unicorn of the podcast, as it is a very special day for the man sitting virtually across the internet next to me, Initia1ise and Nymaera. Happy belated birthday, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Pleasure. And of course, I'm joined by the first class Nymaera, delivering explicit service across your interwebs.
I would have used Initia1ise, the aging caster.
Ooh.
I think my personal favourite there was explicit service, like rather,
He missed
rather than
it. He
exquisite,
totally
rather than exquisite. And I was thinking, well, what kind of service is he rendering on the internet these days?
DM me to find out. Anyway, as always, I'm Alex Nymaera.
He's a Jana main now. $2.95.
Colorcaster extraordinaire. I've been all over the shop doing some work for some different people. And I'm glad to be back to talk about some LJL stuff. So that's me.
It's been a hot minute for all of us. It has been. It's I'm glad to be joined both back with you both, even though we were celebrating Initia1ise's birthday only a few days ago. That's two LJL Officially Unofficial birthdays in the month of April. Myself and Initia1ise. God, April babies are clearly the best babies. Like,
yeah, we are the best babies.
We are best baby.
Thanks, guys.
I mean, you're just in a minority here. Like, this is facts. We counted two, and we counted one. I mean, the only difference is, Nymaera, I might be able to give your birthday present in person as opposed to Initia1ise.
Really cool.
So, I mean, we'll see how that goes. But what is this podcast? It is the LJL Officially Unofficial. We cover all things that happen in the LJL. What is the LJL? It's the official pro league for the Japanese League of Legends professional scene, run by Riot Games, Riot Japan, and their partners. This podcast, though, has no affiliation with Riot Games, Riot Japan, or any of their partners. We run all of this off of our own backs. Myself, Initia1ise, and Nymaera. With that all said, this also does not represent the LJL Officially Unofficial Cast. These are our own opinions, and we will definitely say things that might be borderline questionable sometimes, but I've already said explicit about Nymaera, so I mean, we definitely say some.
There won't be personal attacks. They'll all be
absolutely.
about the game, at least.
Oh, yes, and normally flaming each other for our opinions. That's how we normally work.
Okay, personal to each other.
Oh, obviously personal to each other.
In-house personal.
If you are interested in anything, if you're watching the video version of our podcast, our handles below, as well as the LJL Officially Unofficial Twitter and Instagram of LJL Officially Unofficial, is all streamed across this. But if you are missing that, you can find Nymaera at Nymaera. You can find Initia1ise at Initia1ise. That is INITIA1ISE. And you can find me at
The L is a
1. Yes, the L is a 1. That's the easiest way. Or you can check the show notes where I always include all of our handles, as well as the official handles. Obviously, all this podcast does go out on all major stream platforms, excluding a specific one I didn't mention. I'm going to continue not mentioning them. Because then that raises more suspicion. Right. Oh yeah. But this podcast does go out on all major stream platforms. So if you are interested, there are links to most of the platforms. And if you have a platform you would like this podcast to be on and it's not on there already, do by all means please get in touch. The best way to get in touch, though, is through our Discord. You can find the Discord link in the show notes. Or if you Google, sometimes you can find links through any and all of our videos that we do post.
Our Twitter DMs are open as well.
All of our Twitter DMs, I actually
slide on in.
Questioning my... Yeah, no, mine are. I had to open them recently.
The LJL Unofficial, at LJL Unofficial account is... Well,
always has it.
It's at LJL Official. That is the account. Unofficial shit.
Oh, it's just LJL Unofficial. That's it.
Yeah, that one. Those DMs are open. You can get in contact with us through that as well.
And as always, we're not going to do this for too long because I think everybody is well enough kind of done with my spiel about all of this, because we're all having to deal with it and really kind of just hedge our bets as much as we can. Social distancing is important. Please keep yourself, those you care about, and your neighbor as safe as possible. We are strong together. I'm getting the kind of Planet of the Apes thing. Apes strong together. But we are, if we actually follow our government and just kind of listen to the World Health Organization and
that'd be great.
Wash your hands and say the Pokemon rocket Team Rocket thing, prepare for trouble, make sure for double. I do that every single time. And my
That's
hands...
how you do it. You time it by doing the...
Oh, yeah. I mean, trust me, I've had some interesting ones. I start playing their YouTube videos of random different ones they've got so I can start trying to get them into my repertoire. I'm preparing for episode 100, guys. I might have multiple cosplay changes in store. Like, you don't know. I might be Jesse and James, as well as, like, multiple league champions. We don't know.
Initialize is definitely Meowth.
Meowth, that's right. I don't know whether I do a decent Brooklyn accent.
That leaves me to be Wobbuffet, and I'm not sure I'm happy with that.
Fair.
I mean, I will happily be female James with huge titties. Big old biddies.
He'd do it.
I'm sure many people would be happy with that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What are we going to be talking about, gentlemen, in this episode of the podcast? Well,
how did we end up here?
We are going to be covering the games that we have been waiting for weeks for. Finally, we're able to talk about them because they are actually happening this week. On the 3rd of May, we will be covering the semi-finals live over on our Twitch channel of LJL_officially_unofficial, or if you just type in LJL Unofficial, you will find our Twitch page. We'll be talking about first V3 facing off against DFM. Later in the episode, we will then be covering the finals with all potential outcomes and everything that we feel like we could cover in that kind of section. Overall winners and potentially any and all thoughts. This is going to be a very long episode if you haven't already seen from the time that is probably going across your video player or podcasting app. After that, we will have a brief talk of meta talk, maybe a little bit of small talk and questions to end us out. But this is going to be a long one. By the way, the finals is going to be on the 4th of May. I did forget to say that. It'll be on the 4th of May, and we will also be streaming that live. Please do, by all means, join our Discord or follow us on Twitter for updates, as we will be very vocal on all of our own personal Twitters, as well as the our own LJL Officially Unofficial Twitter and pages, because we want to make it so people are aware we're doing it, because we will do it live, because it was very well last time.
Importantly, that means this is the last podcast before they happen. You know, we record the day after they happen, so we'll have a very tired podcast after 2 best of 5s next week.
Probably, yeah.
Yep.
But that's what we do for the sake of content. And we've got a lot of things that we've actually been having to push off when it comes to content in the grand scale of things. We were already having about an hour conversation about something that will probably, once we've done the work for it, we will probably turn into a podcast episode, as it will be interesting to talk about. Definitely moving into off-season for this in-between part, we will probably be more experimental with our content. And then definitely after the end of summer split, we will probably be diverging into other content around League of Legends, potentially not just exclusive to the LJL, because there won't be much to talk about until we hear stuff and news. So, wanted to just get that out of the way, but gentlemen, we've been waiting so long for this match.
We have.
Yeah. A long time. What, 3, 4 weeks?
So long. We've done 3 episodes, I think, of the podcast. I think this is number 3 we're doing.
Damn.
Is it? I think it might be 4, because remember we did an episode running down how the game went, and then we did 2 filler weeks. And then
God, yeah. But this is
it's actually been 4 weeks.
This is the 4th episode of the podcast, and we do this
is a dry spell, man.
And this is why our content has been less as up to the same level, because we haven't been able to cover the LJL.
We did well considering.
Oh,
but,
100%.
There's so much you can do with literally no content happening around you.
Yeah, I mean,
we can cover other leagues' drama.
Yeah, pretty much.
True, but part of the problem is we wanted to cover content, but we couldn't cover it because we still had something to lead into, and we couldn't cover
pretty much.
Put us in a real weird state. But our semi-final match will be V3 Esports facing off against Detonation Focus Me. Side selection has not been currently unveiled, and that probably won't be made available till the day. Highest seeding will be DFM, so you could assume they might have, they will have side selection for the first game.
They came from the upper bracket too. So.
But we don't know which side they have picked. We can obviously hedge our bets, and that's potentially something we will talk about later in this section. I have got a brief bullet point, which these two are aware of, which, so there will be a schedule that I'll be keeping us vaguely to. We might go off, as we commonly do, into tangents. But I will also be trying to keep this on a vague leash because this could be an episode that, if I'm not careful, could be 4 hours.
Yep.
And I don't really want to do that.
Nope. We digress enough before the episode not to do it within it as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But with that said, what have we learnt about these two teams during playoffs, gentlemen?
So, who do you want? Well, I guess I'll start it then.
Go
for it, man.
Now the question for me is, who have we learned more about in playoffs? Who's been? So we're talking about V3, we're talking about DFM. V3 played 3 games versus Axis, 3-0 in the round 1 of playoffs. Then they went on to beat CGA in a reverse sweep. That was a 3-2. So, and then whereas DFM lost 3-2 to Sengoku. So we've seen 8 games from one team, including 5 wins and 2 losses. No, 6 wins, 2 losses, right? And then we've seen 3 losses and 2 wins from DFM.
Yep.
I'm going to. Well, Sam, do you have a particular one that you'd like to take? Because I'll take the other one. Or
are we talking? This is for teams specifically.
Yeah, teams V3 or DFM. Because I'll lead off with one. But do you want to lead off with another if you let me pick the first one?
I mean, I can go. Yeah, you go. I'll take either.
Right, okay. Well, I know that you're a DFM boy, so I'll start off with V3 because I've been a big fan of them throughout the split. So V3, they came in with some real firepower into playoffs. They absolutely swept through Axes. They didn't really look like they were challenged that much.
With the sweep with Axes, that was a 9-win streak, something like that, right?
Yeah,
I think it was huge.
I think it matched the win streak for the LJL this split, if we include the regular split. If we include like a run-off between the regular season into playoffs, right? And then the important thing for me is not that series, though, because it didn't look like they were particularly challenged in a lot of the areas in the game, which we know they succeed in already, right? That changed a lot in CGA's games. They lost the first 2 games. They looked like they were rudderless. And the big thing which we learned about V3 in that series is that they can adapt in a best of 5. They changed which champions they were picking. They changed what particular roles they were potentially playing in the team as well, particularly for Boogie as well, right? Because he was changing from something like an Echo, a heavy dive champion, into something like Rek'Sai, which paths very differently, can affect lanes very reliably, and come out with some really, really strong performances on champions like that. So for me, V3, we have learned that they have multiple styles of play that they can go towards with certain champions, and that they can adapt in a best of 5 series. One of the other things, which has kind of been a follow-on from this, is that Ace is not a liability. He has come up really big in playoffs right now, and importantly for me, he's come up big on a lot of champions, which we weren't necessarily seeing from him in the regular split so much. He picked up a couple of Syndra games towards the end of the split, then he's carried that on in playoffs. I think he currently has a 46 KDA on the champion, something absurd like that. It's above 40. I'm trying to remember if it's above 50.
Jeez, that is
it's
insane if it
huge.
is.
It is. It's absolutely huge. He's also been picking up stuff like Rumble, which we'll talk about later into the podcast because it affects kind of certain dynamics between some of these matchups. And effectively, for us, one of the questions about Ace coming into it is that he's looked good on some things, but how good is he really on his entire champion pool, right? I've not been a big fan of his Jace. I have been a big fan of his LeBlanc. We've seen a couple of other picks start joining that pool. And that's been a big thing for V3 as they push deeper into this playoffs run. I think some other things we found out. Reyna, absolutely insane. This guy's great. But not everything is positive. Not every player has had the sterling performances we always see from them. And actually, sometimes separate from their performances is about how people react to them. For me, Boogie has been found that he can be nullified. There are ways where you can make Boogie kind of accountable. We saw that versus CGA when they lost a couple of the games, versus them. Some very close, inches of life left on health bars, where Boogie did not win them for the first time we've really seen this split. And we also saw like Archer need some time to settle into a series. He didn't look particularly great in that CJ series either. He came online later into it, but it was a long time waiting. Spoken a lot about V3 now, guys, so if you guys want to take off anything from that, anything I've said, go away for it. No.
Like, I think it's quite interesting that obviously V3 went down 0-2 versus CGA. And that was when Ace was on a Jace in the mid lane and looked a little bit meh on it, I think is the way to put it. Similarly, we saw particularly in that game 1, Reyna went towards the set support and they couldn't quite make it work. Also, bluntly, it was Paz on Ornn and Mordekaiser, neither of which he looked anywhere near as good as his last 3 games, which were on Aatrox, and then GP. we know he blows those champions damn well. It is a little bit telling to me that I think the Ornn and the the Mordekaiser were a little more toothless. And we have seen him on Ornn before kind of miss one or two ultimates in the regular step. We go, not sure about that. So there is potentially something around the Ornn pick, maybe being a little bit suspect for V3. But I want to see more before I kind of commit to that being a thing. But I have a concern there, I think is the way to put it.
So I think V3 are looking the strongest they've ever looked in their whole split. I think if V3 are going into this matchup, they are having the best chance they were going to have throughout this whole season so far in the spring split. Looking specifically at playoffs, I think they have just been getting arguably leaps and bounds better. They beat a CGA that looked almost unbeatable in some aspects. They had the absurd tiebreaker 20-minute stomp fest.
Yeah. And
then proceeded to then beat Rascal Jester in a series that I was always giving, I think, except for the very end, I was giving to Rascal Jester.
Yeah.
And
that
they played Rascal Jester's game and beat them, which kind of made me very worried slightly for V3. But V3 then were able to not fall apart to tilt, not lose themselves in the losses, especially against obviously CGA, where they went 0-2 down, then reverse sweeped it, and quite clearly after that first win, you could definitely see on camera that the whole team felt good, and that's because they all did good. They all won their lanes to a point. Boogie looked absurd. Ace just couldn't die. Went 10-0, 1-10, 1-0-10 on Syndra. Again, obviously off this Jace. I definitely agree with you both. I think that is a problem pick, but I think outside of just don't give Ace Jace, it's almost like the Ray Farkey thing with Darius. If you don't give them these champions, they are sometimes playing phenomenally for where they are, and questions have to be made. Ace has been honestly really impressive over these last seasons, and he was able to go 1-1 with the best mid laner of the region.
Oh yeah, Aria's our best mid laner.
So if he's able to go 1-1 with Aria and beat Aria in spots.
In some spots,
yeah. Not every spot. I'm not saying it's crazy, but I think if you're able to go toe-to-toe with Aria, and
that's a good show.
That's a really good place to, you should be feeling very confident, because Aria plays very differently to Saros.
Particularly the last game.
Yeah,
Ace was really good.
So I think for V3, we've learned that they are on fire at the moment. They are playing their best, and I'm very excited to see where they go. Initia1ise, are you going to take us through DFM so far and what we've learned from them?
Yeah, so I think there's a few things we've learned about DFM, and one, I think probably the big one is, there's probably two things to cover, which are kind of major things initially before we start delving into some of the nitty-gritty. So one is that DFM didn't have the best plans for level ones. They got punished a couple of games, particularly game 1, and particularly game, I want to say would have been game 4 or 5, I forget which one, where effectively Steel had his level 1s kind of particularly nullified. The game 1 is a very notable one for that.
Game 4 was pretty bad, although game 4 and 5 happened very similarly in level 1s.
Whereas I think game 4 was a better recovery from Steel, but the real notable one for this was in fact the game 1, and we saw it in the regular split as well. Week 5 when Sengoku Gaming got the win over DFM, it was off a poor level 1 invade from DFM, and that proved to be a bit of a weakness, where what they wanted to do and set up was a Gnar Pantheon dive in the top side, which was going to be difficult anyway, versus a Jarvan and Renekton, which can definitely turn things around, and it showed up here. Second thing is that DFM had a really weird read on them, frankly. They had kind of blanked on a number of key things, and what they were kind of really hard drafting on.
Come on, you can't say blanked without blank being on the team that's causing this. I'm sorry.
I like to do it intentionally.
He's a man amongst Appa men.
That's the one.
But sorry, by all means, continue.
Yeah. So specifically, I want us to have a look at they put a lot of focus on towards this Pantheon Gnar combo and then Lease Gnar combo, which was around about getting Ebby snowballing, hard pushing on this Gnar, diving him with steel. They've done it before, but with these champions, it just didn't really work out. The Gnar games, game 1 was a bit meh, didn't do a lot. Game 4, when he came back to it, started really well, but couldn't find the team fights. And similarly with game 5, it was kind of like, okay, couldn't find our way into the team fights. Well, roam early and find the team fights, and then just died trying to initiate. So there was some problems with the drafting and the read on the meta. The specifics on that are a couple of different champions. We talked about the Gnar priority. Clearly is potentially a counter pick into things like the Aatrox and the Renekton particularly. It didn't work out the way they wanted to it to. Like, it was fine in lane, but come team fights, they couldn't find engages. And that's the second thing is DFM were really struggling to find engages, particularly versus Varus. And DFM fought against Varus 1, 2, 4 out of the 5 games. And if anybody was watching or paying attention to any of Cloud Templar's recent analysis over specifically for the LCK finals, we saw very similar things and comments about Gen G versus T1, where Gen G did not have a way to deal with Varus. And effectively what happened was that Varus is exceptionally versatile, plays multiple styles, and he can keep you a long way away. And he is very difficult to get onto with just one form of engage because he has got quite a long distance. So you can see engages coming quite a long way away. And so you kind of need multiple ways to threaten him because, yes, he's immobile, but he has got things like the Chains of Corruption and just a decent range that makes him quite difficult to deal with, and especially with how powerful Varus is in lane at the minute. And remember this, I believe, unless they've decided to change this because of the long time gap, we'll still be on the same playoff patch as when we started. 10.5. So 10.5, which is quite a long time ago, and Varus is still real powerful at that point. And we saw that basically DFM did not have an answer to Varus.
I mean, he's arguably still good now.
Yeah, he is. He is, absolutely. That's my point.
If anything, he's overpowered. He's overtuned.
He's even stronger now.
Yeah, they didn't have... DFM didn't have an answer to Varus. They also indexed really heavily into top lane split push come pressure with attempted dives that didn't work out, partly because of level 1 shenanigans, and partly because the Gnar pick just wasn't particularly clean. And kind of attached to that was a kind of, okay, we've got all of these champions which are attacking us from miles away. Victor Varus, huge control, huge sort of zone denial with the right abilities like the Gravity Veiled and the Chains of Corruption, just range, that we can't get on top of them. We're getting poked out around dragon fights, and we're just losing these mid to late game teams. Having said that, their games 2 and 3 were actually pretty good. Ebby got onto Renekton, Steel got onto Pantheon. Renekton Pantheon, now there is a dive combo which looked very, very good. They did a lot of good work with it. They teleported and turned it with Grand Starfalls. Yutoro Miyashi and Gang on the Aphelios and the Thresh turned up to teamfights and did exactly what they needed to on the tin. That was great stuff. And game 3 was versus the kind of this Nocturne Karthus combo, where Nocturne in the mid lane will dive in, Karthus drops the ultimate down as well, and basically you just try to orbital nuke someone from across the map. It didn't work out that well because DFM played it again very, very well. Ebby was back on the Renekton, looked really, really good versus Appenmen's Ornn, did some pretty nasty things to him in lane. And also, of course, Steel on a Trundle meant that tankiness wasn't there in a lot of the team fights later on. And Seros on the Ziggs basically neutered Pyrion. There was one great turnaround fight in the mid lane, I think. That was kind of about it. Utapan also flexed the Syndra towards the bot lane and looked good on it. We saw an early pick Syndra, and it was flex bot and looked very good, and that was a good sign for them.
Okay, so, I mean, that kind of oversays that there isn't a huge amount of problems, really, is what you're saying?
No, and
I think it was a meta arena learn
from this, is the things like, basically, what did we learn from all this?
Yeah. What does that actually teach
describing
us?
it? What does it mean?
Because to be honest, I just see basically currently DFM reliance on blue side. Their drafting is still garbage, in my opinion. I think they still have to ban the same overpowered picks because they're scared of their enemy champions. Where their enemies don't do that now.
Yeah,
That's
so I think
a big deal.
So,
in my eyes.
yeah, so we did also see the
most of
Heimerdinger
what's-
get through. No one cared about it. Yeah.
Yeah, most of what Sam said is on my list of what stuff which I prepped for this too. We prepared separately, so definitely quite obvious if we're both seeing it. You know, we're both of the same mind. The other thing which I was going to say is basically the champion pool in mid lane is affecting the draft quite seriously now. Not because Seros can't play the champions they're picking for him. He does have some very good picks, and he's still one of our top elite players in the LJL. The problem is where they have to pick it in the draft, because he has to have certain champions to fit the team comps. He has to know. So we saw a lot of Syndra priority, right? Some early kind of picks of that. And, we saw like an Ornn as well. But like it just, particularly in games 4 and 5, they early picked a Syndra. And while they did flex it down to the bot lane to get something for him in game 3, they gave him a Ziggs. That doesn't necessarily work unless you're on red side. They weren't prioritizing red side, and I think that Sengoku used the counter pick better than DFM did the entire series. So I think that DFM, what we've learned from them is that they are not as confident in the draft as they were in the regular season, and Sengoku are a caliber of team which is punishing them for that.
Yeah. So I kind of to add in on that, that's partly what I'm talking about when I was saying they had a bit of an odd read on the meta because they were really hard indexing.
No, exactly. Yeah, it all kind of ties into that. But what's the specific
basically
of it?
Syndra and Narn, because they were saying like we can flex this Syndra, we think it's really strong, and sure it is. We look at Night9 over in the LPL doing nasty things on the Syndra.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's just not saying
so
that's
yeah. So exactly, and so that you can understand. Okay, they think that's a potential point of pressure in the draft, and to an extent maybe it is, but there are also issues in with that. We're saying, okay, well, holistically, actually, it wasn't an answer to Victor Varys because we couldn't get onto them, and our answer was Nara's our engage, cannot get there.
Basically, yeah.
Nymaera, what have you learned specifically about DFM that you've learned from them currently just in their playoff spot, really? Just to get a different point of view.
Yeah. Basically, again, level 1s have not really been thought through. Against someone like Blank, that is difficult because we know this guy has he has arguably the strongest and the most high-profile adaptation of any player and preparation of any player in the history of League. Right, we saw him as a sub jungler for SKT, and he used that to great effect. Level 1s were just not thought through. When they had their level 1 disrupted, they normally lost the game. The one time that didn't happen is when Sengoku tried to disrupt the jungle with a Karthus jungle. Where arguably Karthus
bad level 1.
Yeah, Karthus needs to not have that happen.
Yeah, that was game 3.
They were trying to weigh up. DFM really suck when they have level 1s not go well for them compared to Karthus level 1s not being good if he gets...
Well, they had their own level 1 go awfully, basically.
Well, that's the thing, right? They were the ones that pulled the trigger try and invade bot side, and they didn't get the Karthus with anything. He ended up using his smite on his first camp, losing a load of mana. But what we learned from DFM is it's just contingency plans are not in place for them right now, and that's something they need to work on. And basically the other thing is just, there are two things. One is lacking a reasonable way to deal with Varys and Victor.
Yeah, exactly that.
And actually what this ties through to is partly Ebby's champion pool in terms of what they're prioritizing for him. They use the Gnar. It's not reliable. It can get to the backline, but in the 3 games they lost, he was playing it, and it doesn't work versus a team with the composure of Sengoku and the range to play around, right? Victor and Varys have ways to peel for themselves.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, which is why for me, the Renekton was so big for him in their victories, because he can dive the backline. He gets to crush lane. Ebby is a great player. He will crush lane if you give him the tools to do so, and Renekton wins 90% of the matchups you put him into. There are a couple of things like, I don't know, Jace can beat Renekton occasionally. Ornn and Aatrox can, but it's difficult. But as soon as the Renekton was off the table, they didn't have a reliable early game and team fight diving champion, and Ebby just didn't have the tools available to him. That's kind of everything I put in terms of specifics for DFM.
Yeah, and I mean, I think through that we learned that DFM, to really emphasize your point you made, both of you made earlier, is Sengoku can draft
really well,
and they can modify and they can pivot off, and they're also, in a weird way, they're almost willing to let one bad pick not mess their whole draft. If they make a bad pick in normally R1, R2, or B1, B2, they're willing to almost sacrifice that pick, sacrifice that player to a degree, and go, screw it. You are our mid laner, our support, whatever. Your pick just doesn't gel with the rest of our team's composition. Let's just kind of have you pivot into this, because then we can just beat them on every other aspect, and then you just kind of are along for the ride. And if you do good, awesome. If you win your matchup, that's just looking at black and white and going, I lose to X. But then if your whole team wins and then maybe you get to do some winning, I think
it's
that's
all right.
Exactly. It's all right. Can't complain. But
kind of also want to double in actually on.
I thought you might be able to go with your point onto the next bullet point.
Oh,
maybe.
actually, lead it. Go.
That's why I thought you might be going with this. I see. I'm a host with the most. I try.
Got it.
With DFM being proven to be beaten in playoffs, like this is DFM playoffs, not spring split where they might do crazy stuff. This is playoffs DFM. Sengoku and V3 both went 1-1 versus DFM in the regular spring split. But now that they've been proven by Sengoku to be beaten, does this change anything specifically for V3? I think it might make some impacts on how they prepare. Maybe I want to kind of pick your brains and Initia1ise. If that's not what you were going for, just fucking say it.
Yeah. So like, was it? But like, I think there's probably ties in a little bit in that actually, what this means for V3 is having looked at that DFM trees, they're going to pick out a couple things. Is actually V3 are going to want to index into having some good level 1 plans, get Boogie the kind of aggressive lead where he can start controlling the jungle matchup. And, he can. The problem is, we saw in the semi-finals that V3 tried to do that and did it absolutely shockingly. It was atrocious on the mid lane.
Game 1 and 2, yeah.
Oh my days, it was bad. So the thing is, it's all well and good saying V3 will have learned about that. Sure. Whether they can pull it off, I do not know. And secondly, they're going to want to look towards Varus, frankly. Because they're going to want to ask the question, have DFM now got an answer to Varus? Because they didn't really in the semis, or whatever answer they thought they had didn't work. And that cost them, because they were 2-1 up in that series, feeling fairly good after a bit of a dodgy game 1. Then they kind of lose 2 games pretty handily to Varus around Dragon Fights. And that kind of ties in a little bit to this, is that Sengoku Gaming's vision control around objectives and around the level 1 was really, really, really good. And it meant that whatever he wanted to do to get into the backline couldn't do it. Can V3 do the same to basically do what they want to with that Varus?
Sure, because basically Sengoku going into the vision control thing basically means that most of Ebi's champion pool in terms of trying to dive stuff needs a flank to do it later into the game, and you can't do that without the vision, right? That's how it all ties in together. One thing in terms, does this change anything for V3? Yeah, I think it does, because I think DFM, they might have some obvious flags that they're looking to attend to in this break, and they might say, okay, let's play with the Varus, try and play with the Victor, let's try and get ourselves this kind of team comp. How is this going to work for us if we play this style? I think of all the teams in the LJL dealing with Varus and dealing with the more static but long-range backline, they are the team which deals with it best. They have heavy diving junglers. Stuff like the Nidalee didn't work out, but they not in that game anyway. It did work out in the quarterfinals versus round 1 versus Axis. And also they play the Rek'Sai. They are 5-0 on Rek'Sai. They have Rumble mid, which keeps turning up. That's really good at dealing with stuff like that, because they have to flash out of the equalizer or die. Might change if you pick up something someone like a Thrasher or Tahm Kench, right? But Reyna plays both of them very well, so arguably you just take one away from them in the draft.
We've also been seeing that we can play Echo in mid and jungle.
Exactly.
Yeah, Ace can pick play a very mean one as well, so it's...
Sure. And then we saw that Paz plays the Gangplank. Gangplank is also really good at that. If you have a Rumble and a Gangplank, these champions cannot stand still in a team fight.
Classic matchup in that top lane this series is going to be.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah, it is.
Gotta hope.
So for me, I mean, we'll talk about it a bit later, but top lane's one to keep an eye on in that kind of matchup. So does it change anything for V3? I think it might do, but not necessarily in the way that they're thinking about it, because DFM might be chasing some red herrings against V3 in particular.
Okay, and I mean, I didn't put this down, but do we think... I mean, no, actually, no. Let's just go on to my next point, because I think I can interject my thought process right now better in a later point. But do we actually think are DFM actually going to learn from these mistakes? I mean, we don't know anything of the backroom, but we've seen what they've done in the past with their mistakes and the attentiveness that is given to them. So I ask the question. DFM, are they going to remember? Are they actually going to learn? They've had a month to learn. Are they going to learn?
I think if you've got a coaching staff of Kazu and On Air, you would have to have significant issues within the team not to learn.
But the thing is, against V3 in particular, is that you're not preparing against a one-dimensional team. They showed multiple facets that they can kind of index into their drafts and in their play style.
Just through playoffs alone.
Exactly, just through playoffs, right? And all of these players do have extra champions that they're not pulling out, I'm pretty sure, as well. I mean, Boogie in particular, we haven't seen his gens out yet. That might be a pick which comes out and absolutely screws over the early game.
I could also see them just doing, because they can still do this, they could play Tariq Yi and they could just do it. Because you could still do it on 10.5. Do it! Do it, Boogie! Do it!
There's so many, so for me, it's like, if DFM get the wrong idea, which we've seen many great teams do, notably Griffin in the LCK. They've been sat in the finals sometimes and just been like, till they Pantheon bot lane. It's the best thing ever. And they get absolutely wailed on, and it sucks. So I think...
Well, they just didn't play it well, to be fair. We've seen it work elsewhere, but...
Sure, but the precedent is still there to some degree. So, will DFM have learned from their mistakes? To some degree, yeah, they will do. They have a great coaching staff. They have a great caliber of players. But the thing is, like... The question is, you're just fixing problems that we saw on the surface in those games. Does that apply to a different team matchup? Will that expose different weaknesses because of the way these players work?
I mean,
the champions
V3 are able to flex champions in multiple roles, fundamentally, across a few lanes at least. I'm not going to go crazy. We're not going to go Magical Christmas Land because we understand our players are human. And also from what we've just seen on what they do in solo queue and what they've brought out through the previous season. So we won't go Magical Christmas Land saying that champions should be 4 flex if they're Pantheon and 3 flex if it's Kindred and stuff. Like, we're not...
I'm just worried if they have to, like, pick up some new champions and, like, they haven't really put the pieces together.
Sorry, is this for V3 or DFM we're talking?
Both teams, but to a more degree DFM, because I think a big problem or question mark for me is V3 can play a very adaptive draft, assuming they're on red side, right? And DFM struggle at playing adaptive drafts. They almost reveal what they're doing off of their first pick, which just allows V3 to go, cool, they're drafting like this. We know how to beat them. We saw Sengoku do it. We already know how to play this comp. Okay.
Yeah. I'm not entirely
I don't know if they're going to stop doing that.
I agree with that. I'm not entirely sure.
I've only seen them play about 3 different comps throughout this spring split, in my eyes. Really about... There's different faces on the champions.
Because I think my issue...
But they mostly do the same 3 things.
Because I think my issue with V3 is effectively we've seen Boogie play only 2 styles of jungle, and they've been very good, but they've been the 2 styles. We've seen his Nidalee Echo, where it's I will carry really hard from the jungle, and we will dive.
Okay.
The other style, which we saw is what he did in the first 2 games, that's semis, and it did not work. And when he got shut down, the rest of the team got kind of crumbled.
But then he's also 5-0 on Rek'Sai.
But then exactly. Yeah. And but then the other option is
we didn't see his Lee Sin.
Yeah, whereas his Rek'Sai Elise Lee Sin, where he goes really, really aggro.
And there's 2 games on Gragas. We're just not talking about those.
Yeah, but it's a particular style of the way he plays.
No, I disagree with you, Initia1ise. I think he's played multiple different styles. I think saying 2 is shoeboxing Boogie into I think he's played about 5 different styles of jungler.
Because remember, we've also seen him try to play things like Trundle and Skarner and look the team looked really bad around it. I'm not into... And the thing is, so basically, Boogie... Yeah, so I'm not... It's like, I think Boogie either goes for the really hard carry, which is fantastic, and we've also seen it shut down. The other option, which has worked very well for them so far, has been the Rek'Sai, the Elise where he goes really, really aggro early and looks to snowball through that.
The thing for me now is that, particularly because of Ace's uptick in terms of his form, I would trust putting Boogie on Trundle again and have like a Syndra or a Rumble in the mid lane. I'd be okay with that.
Okay.
Like if you have like a Trundle versus like say DFM pick up an Ornn mid. They did that in the games versus Sengoku.
Yep.
You pick a Trundle into that for Boogie. You have a Syndra or a Rumble in the mid lane. I think that actually they win that mid lane 2v2, and as much as Ornn can really just dunk on something like a Syndra, I would trust them to play that now because of Ace's up to form.
Can you remember what Ebby played top? It wasn't AP, was it? I don't think it was AP.
We haven't seen him. We've seen him play Mordekaiser.
He played the Gnar against Sengoku.
He was Gnar and Renekton. That's all he played.
That's right. Yes.
Whereas we saw.
I think that's a garbage pick.
Because that's my second.
But that's beside the point.
Because my second potential call out on V3 would be Paz looked not good on Mordekaiser or Ornn.
I think that Mordekaiser was actually okay.
Was it? I don't remember. Okay, I'll take that.
In that game in particular, Paz was the one person doing well. This is when like Ace had a Jace, which was really not doing anything, and then like Archer went 0-6 on the FLOS.
No, I apologize. You're right.
Boogie looked pretty bad. Don't get me wrong, but like for me, Paz was like the one person doing well that game.
I also don't think...
No, I apologize, you're right. Yeah.
Saying having 1 or 2 games on Ornn throughout the playoffs is enough to say he's bad at a champion.
I wasn't massively impressed with him in the regular season.
No, the Ornn was whatever, in fairness for me.
But then I also think Ornn is just good enough, and you should just prio pick him still. In 10.5, you have to. I'm sorry. I think that's prio pick or ban.
I think, particularly in the LJL, I think that Renekton is being a real cock blocker to a lot of these team fight picks, though, because like we've seen it from Ebby, and like this is going to probably skip out like a couple of points just because it's reached it now. I think the thing about the Renekton is it allows some very proficient laning top laners to just dunk on the other top laner and make sure they don't hit an item power spike for the third dragon point, which is when the team fights really start swinging. Because like you've got this insanely fed crocodile, which is at his point of power, killing the backline, stuff like the Varus and the Victor can't peel for themselves against that kind of lead, and your own top laner just isn't doing enough. So for me, like Renekton is being really good for the LJL right now, and they don't really know how to deal with it.
If we want to go on that point, let's go over to pick and bans, because I think that's a fair point to bring it in. Okay, so you're saying Ebby on his Renekton is
I think it's huge.
Huge. I think it's a champion that I would like to know before I make any points. How much priority are they putting on that pick? Is it like B1?
I would almost say first pick.
Are they okay? So if they are first picking Renekton, that is great for V3 because you can build a comp that beats Renekton very easily. But very easily. Yeah. And V3 are the team that could do that very easily. If they want to be successful internationally, this is the kind of stuff that you need to start doing. Or I'm just going to be like, cool, we've got LJL in Worlds, but my expectation for them going
I don't think it's first pick blue side. I think Varus is that right now. I think Varus
probably.
Aphelios still.
I can see Aphelios.
Aphelios and Varus kind of fulfill the same role in 10.5 because this is pre-nerf Aphelios in like 10.7.
Yeah, so this is still Aphelios is still number 1.
Yeah, so he doesn't have like his Q nerf throughout the early game,
which is absurd at that point.
Because it's like, he just does way too much. Because like effectively, when you have Gravitum on Aphelios, you basically have an AoE Varus ult anyway, kind of, because you just chuck out the ult and then you just press Q and it's just blunk, everyone's rooted. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and then also you get to scale ridiculously well with crit.
Yes.
And we saw that in Sengoku versus DFM, right? We saw this series of plays. I think it was game 1 actually, where it was Miyashi and Yutapon both sat in mid lane, and Miyashi kind of was right by his own turret, and then like a fight started because the Graviton came down, locked him in place, and it was all about catching the AD carry. They ended up losing that fight, but the idea was the same. And then later on, Varus caught Aphelios, and the same thing happened. It was literally about the engage ult from the AD carries starting off the team fight in the mid lane at that point. Yeah, both of them fulfilled the same role. You could have switched the champions, probably the same thing would have happened. Yeah.
So are we going to run on the assumption that DFM on blue side, because they will have priority pick, so they'll be on blue side at probably game 1 at least. Are they still going to keep banning LeBlanc, Zoe, and Senna? Senna is still absurdly strong, so that makes some sense, but are they still going to have to ban these mid laners who are really strong in the patch because Syros can't play them?
I think...
Are we going to be putting all the priority onto Syndra, which just shouldn't be picked that early?
Ace's LeBlanc is really good.
Yeah, so you want to ban it from LeBlanc anyway. You want to ban it from that. And honestly, if you're wanting to get priority for Ebby, which I think they may well be.
I don't think you should be first picking for Ebby. That is just actually throwing all your cards on the table and saying we're losing.
I think Aatrox for Renekton for sure.
They are likely to first pick set.
Yeah,
they will do.
I think V3 can just ban that. I don't think they care.
Yeah, I think that Paz is happy playing GP or some shit into it. GP Aatrox, I think he'd be fine with that.
Yeah, but true.
DFM will still probably first pick set if given the option.
This is 10.5 set, which is absurd. Even now, he's still
strong. Absurd. He's still been nerfed quite a bit at this
and he's still maybe still fine to blind pick, which is absurd.
Yeah, he is. And this is without flexing him to support too much. We've seen a couple of games.
We have seen V3 do that.
Not from DFM. We saw it from another team as well.
No, V3. I thought we saw Reina doing that.
V3 did it. I'm trying to remember if we saw another team.
No, Reina played a set game. It wasn't good though. They lost horribly on it.
No, they played. No, Reina played fine. The rest of the team just did not work well.
Because he ended up 1-6-1, didn't he? On that.
But I remember that game.
Yeah, he wasn't.
Right,
he wasn't inting. It was the rest of his team that.
Okay.
Yeah,
no, I remember.
I still wasn't entirely convinced because he was going really in and no one else was following. So I don't know whether that's just a team.
No, I disagree. I think actually he was pretty good on the whole. I think that.
He played 2 games, went 1-1, which means if
it was the second game.
This means that obviously they can, if they don't ban him and DFM take him blind, it basically forces priority pick where they go pick set or don't, and we can flex him probably 3 ways, which are good because he's still garbage in jungle, and obviously you would never do that to Boogie. You would never do that to Boogie.
We have seen a couple sets.
You shouldn't put him in the jungle.
I think that basically you can't.
Birthday boy, no, it's okay.
We definitely have seen some set
jungles. Yeah, whether you should or not, or what you can do is another thing.
I think that set jungle is fine to flex set out of a bad matchup when you don't have any priority jungles left.
Yeah.
But you have top mid support. Worst case scenario, you throw him support.
Mid, I would not put him there against most of the champions.
Against Cyros's champ pool, I would be okay with it, unless it's Syndra.
Though.
Not great.
Yeah, but you can ban Syndra. If you're
but
that worried, or you can just pick him and just wait till R5 to pick a counter pick to
basically,
Syndra.
I think he's good versus
a zero or some shit.
If you're gonna play something like Pantheon, we've seen set dump on that.
Also,
just go. Sorry.
I will be curious to see because actually we saw what the adaptation from Sengoku was in the last couple games versus DFM was. They basically said we're going to ban set Pantheon Renekton, those really aggro two top lanes and a top lane flex, and then Ebby's go-to after that was not the Aatrox, it was the Gnar. And we know Ebby plays a great Aatrox. I was wondering why the Gnar, and if versus V3 the same thing happens, I think Pat's going to be really happy with that.
I believe they were prio picking Syndra aggressively.
That was in third pick on blue side.
Yeah,
it was in your second round, first 3 picks.
Yeah, as well as I believe they were also prioritizing Utapon on Ezreal.
I'm trying to remember.
They were leaving the Ezreal late.
Were they leaving it late?
So they could flex a Syndra.
Well, they just first picking Steel's Elise and just...
They were first picking Syndra for the flex.
So it was I was right with the Syndra saying blind first pick Syndra. Okay.
Yeah, and it worked well for them in game 3. It didn't work in game 4. They tried it again game 5. It didn't work. So it was 1-on-1 and then they lost it.
That raises question marks, which means Apperman's just picking up a Trox because...
I'm trying to remember who was first pick Elise actually in game 4 and 5.
I don't know. They stopped banning it because they realized they don't have to give a shit, and I think this is something.
It might have been Syndra. It might have been Syndra second, third. I can't quite remember off the top of my head. It was a little. It was.
I think it was Syndra pick 3. I seem to remember that, or it might have been in game 3. Whatever. I don't have the pick ban order. I'm not gonna.
I mean, I know. Commonly, Sengoku, when whatever DFM were replying with come later, they were just like, "Lol, we just get Varus and Aatrox. Cool, you guys can't do shit."
Yeah.
And they're just like, "Cool, we already have our combo going, and you guys have nothing."
I have got some questions about what happens if DFM kind of stop with the Gnar thing, which didn't work, and then draft their sort of 2v2 top rather than 2v2 mid, and just lead. And what happens is do V3 answer?
What do you pick then?
That's the thing, though. Besides Renekton, what's he gonna crush?
Renekton, Aatrox, GP. I think he can all play.
No, but Aatrox, you can't be guaranteed 3 top laners, right? You can't be guaranteed Set, you can't be guaranteed Renekton, you can't be guaranteed Aatrox, right?
No.
I think that V3 are happy to first round.
But if
Renekton or Aatrox.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because I
that with a Varus or something.
So my question is more that actually, what happens if so again, a lot of what V3 did sort of towards particularly towards that last Rumble game was actually Boogie and Ace teamed up really well, is what they did. Yeah. They kind of all roamed together or turned up in the mid lane for both first tower and first blood, I believe. Yeah, first tower and first blood.
They had a mid 2v2 which went really well.
Yeah. What happens is my question is, does Ace look as good if Boogie has to put his priority top?
I think yes, because Ace has been shown against Ardia when he wasn't getting that priority as much. He was doing fine. Yeah. So, and that's against Ardia. I rate Ardia far higher than Cyrus at the moment. So.
So can I
yeah, go for it.
Because I know that basically we said that Ace was doing well versus Ardia in the 1v1. that's not the whole story.
Oh, it's
because
not.
actually he was not getting prior. He was getting poked out of lane early. I think his first Jace game versus the Azir, he was trading well in lane, but they lost the game. They ended up losing a lot of stuff about that.
They did.
In his
True.
So the Syndra versus Sylas, he won some early trades, but then kind of like went a bit whatever. The Syndra versus Varus in game 4, he was getting poked out the shit. It's a hard matchup, but like he was surviving is the main important point.
But Syndra
wasn't
doesn't necessarily have any true counters, really.
Well, Varus is pretty good versus him. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the same with any long range mage. But Varus just ends up. This is why Varus mid came out in season 5 to counter Azir, because like you lock them up and then you can just poke them out from outside of their range.
Back on the GE Tigers days.
Want to say I'm right with assuming that we haven't seen much Varus from Ace, if any games.
I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember.
0 games. Yeah, I've just checked now. 0 games in playoffs.
Yeah. So
actually,
that
that's just all games. That's the whole spring split. Which I would assume V3 would have that flex built in, but if they don't and it's all on Archer, that makes it worse significantly.
The thing for me is that there are a couple of picks which come out. Archer plays a good Varus, right? We've seen that a couple of times in the regular split. So for me, the question is, how many picks that we've seen which weren't necessarily buffed by themselves, but have kind of become priority on their own right, from later patches come back to 10.5? Questions for me, Corki is actually pretty good, even on 10.5. Works out really well with the Varus because you got the double poke. And then the other one is Graves in the jungle, right? So the reason I say this is that we saw like a number of teams pick up, like Zoe and Varus, double poke. We saw it in game 1 from Sengoku, and then they weren't allowed Zoe again because it's horrible. And like you land 1 CC, they die. But like Boogie is a guy who's really
probably
good.
A patch thing, but yes.
Partly is, but actually, I don't think Graves was touched himself, and I don't think Corki was touched at all. Actually, between
I don't think either have been touched.
I thought Graves had his smoke screen buff.
Maybe, but the thing for me is like, there's a good point to say actually Graves is very similar to Olaf. Power Farm runs at your ADC, has some extra teamfighter availability, but he has some range to go with that, and works really well with a different set of champions, right? So for me, it's like, okay, looking at these teams, who benefits from that, and like, does that affect the pick and ban and this kind of stuff? And is this other preparation which is happening under the curtains, which we just don't know about?
Well, one, we hope it's happening, obviously. One thing I think is interesting to just bring up at this point, as you start talking about it, Nymaera, is high priority champions at the moment. Okay. Do you want to interject quickly?
So Graves got buffed in 10.5. He got his
MR perfect for us.
Base MR and MR growth got increased. Q cost got flat. Q cost was now flat. Cooldown decreased.
Perfect. In our patch. Perfect. Works.
Gotcha.
Boogie could definitely play that. Steel
plays Graves.
I thought Steel did. So
the thing for me is like Graves is a farming pathing jungler. Arguably the best farming jungler in the LJL is Blank. That's the thing which he's been consistent throughout his entire career.
Pathing is his thing.
Like Steel, so I think that Blank could absolutely play the champion as well. So this could affect all 3 of our teams.
He has played Graves well. I think all 3 of those junglers played pretty well from what I remember.
I don't know specifically about
I don't know about Steel specifically.
I think he does. I remember seeing him. I thought he played a little bit of it last year. Forgive me if I'm wrong.
We'll have to find out. We'll have to do that experimental and checking. I think of champions that obviously are going to be picked or banned. We have 100% Aphelios, because obviously he's banned most of the time, but if he is picked, he actually has a 40% win rate, but everybody knows this is 10.5 Aphelios, so it's broken. Well, overtuned is the term I've been told to start using more. Instead of saying it's broken, you say it's overtuned because it can do too much. Think of... who's one of the most overtuned pieces of shit that's ever been released? Release Ornn.
He was pretty low. He was really low
rate for a while.
Release Camille.
Release Zoe.
Release Zoe.
Release Senna. Release Senna. Release Aphelios. Feral Flare. Release Feral Flare.
And Set is also 100% pick or ban. Has a 75% win rate, but he is being banned more times.
Specifically for V3 DFM, Rek'Sai and Renekton.
We've not seen LeBlanc be played a single time in the LJL in spring split. 100% ban
Playoffs, yeah.
rate. No!
Yeah.
Yes, in spring season. Yes, sorry.
So it's like regular season. We had a lot of notable games at LeBlanc
Yes.
Live, you know.
So I was like, yes. No, you are correct. I was on the playoffs page.
Yeah,
That's
gotcha,
why I'm
gotcha,
getting my
gotcha.
stats. So
Yeah.
again, 100% ban. And then we have Varus, 17 games, 94%. Ban, win, blah, blah, blah. Again, to be honest, the stats don't actually matter. It's just interesting to see how many times these champions are picked. And to be honest, after that, you then start going into 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, blah, 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 where they start getting closer, going from Renekton, Thresh, Nautilus, Tahm Kench, Aatrox,
I think
Senna, and like
huge.
you're just seeing like, and Zoe's 11, like, you're just seeing good champs, support champs that are played consistency. Syndra, Jarvan, Kalista, like these are champs. Elise, we all know these champs, and like these are not question mark.
Know them and love them.
The thing that really does worry me is V3 don't have to do any respect now to Siros's pool.
Yeah, I think that Ace will
don't
survive
know that.
in lane.
It depends whether these Syndra
You have
priority
to assume
continues.
whatever Pyrion has been doing, Ace has been trying to take as many notes as possible.
Yeah. The thing for me is that
Because Ardia will be.
So I think that
would have.
I actually think Jace is pretty good into Syndra because again you can poke her out. Because she has like 0 sustain, she takes Ravenous Hunter, but then you need access to a minion wave, so that means that
I missed that.
So Jace can deal really well around some fights, so I don't mind that if that's the matchup you're picking it into. I think that's also the idea with Azir as well. I just think that Ace on stuff like Zoe and Jace not always hitting all the right marks, not hitting all the right skill shots, which is why I think that Ace has had some good champions, but I don't really want to see him on those two.
Yeah, and I have not seen
Rumble
him punish...
survives against Syndra really well too because of his scrap shield. He takes nullifying orb, he can take early merc treads, and he still has really high base damage for his first team fight. So I think that there are a lot of picks which Ace can just like survive, get through the team fight. You don't have to draft to punish Saros. Saros punishes himself by picking a Syndra early a lot of the time.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And it's like
assuming they're not, assuming DFM still want to flex it, whether they still think that's the kind of thing they want to do.
But they normally reveal that information early because of how they draft.
They flex Syndra fairly late.
No. They reveal that information very early. They almost always pick support on B3 or B2.
Yeah, and that's the
support,
thing, right?
But
so,
not
like,
the AD.
Yeah, so but let's be honest, like the
you can figure out
support,
a lot of combos.
The support determines your TV2 more than your right now.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. But I suppose like the thing is, there's a lot of things. So if you're saying like example, say you're picking a Tahm Kench or a Thresh, there are lots of other things that work with a Tahm and a Thresh that's not a Syndra.
But it's opening yourself up, and things that typically are good against a Syndra in the bot lane are also fine in the mid lane. So I think your counterpoint of saying it's flex. I mean, I think the things that you can pick against it are also flex, like Varus.
Yeah, exactly.
Which just completely counters your whole attempt at doing that.
I would be with that's my question. Whether DFM continue their priority on the Syndra as a flexible thing, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think
and this is just on the whole idea that it just doesn't get banned away from V3, just not wanting to deal with it.
The thing for me is like I know that Initia1ise had a good scoreline on that Syndra, and he was pretty good on it. I don't think it. The thing is for me is that they also played it up with a Ziggs, which was Glacial Ziggs, and they had like double GLP, and it worked really well as a comp. Not necessarily the best two actually. Initia1ise actually came out of that lane really strong, because he just wasn't denied farm at all. I don't think Initia1ise and Gang are the best at punishing in a 2v2. So if you're trying to get a good matchup for them, I prefer to flex something which means you get a better top lane matchup.
Yeah,
but these aren't the picks that we're talking about which flex between mid and top lane. Actually, Evie doesn't play a lot of the flex picks in top lane.
We haven't seen it play Ornn, have we? Have we seen Evie on Ornn?
He doesn't like playing Ornn because it doesn't crush lane.
No.
He's a carry. He's a carry top laner.
He plays the carry, which is why I'm like, pick Renekton. Renekton is really good for him, right?
Yeah. But then if they just go, nah, ban the Renekton, ban the Syndra, ban something else from Ebby, and then go,
Yeah. Because again, that will be the question, is whether DFM continue the priority on Syndra and whether they've got an answer or are willing to pick up the Varus, I think, to me.
But then are they not first picking a Felios? Which is just kind of inting versus Archer?
Oh, but the thing is that,
I'm going to int and just give him a Felios. That is just horrible. I honestly am so interested to watch how this goes.
Archer did have the one really bad game.
You can but every pro has a bad game unless you're Tori Muashi, and then you're flawless on all times.
Yeah, I mean, like, we have seen it in the Reddit. We have seen him had a couple bad games. Yeah, we saw Archer have a couple bad games on Aphelios in the regular season.
Yeah, but the champ is just so strong. It's inting to give it across to red side.
Yeah, it's definitely a risk. You need an answer, and that's partly what Varus is.
No, they're mirrored.
Aphelios, or at least it's a good option in.
Yeah, it's very similar champs.
You have some thoughts on Varus into Aphelios?
I do want to move this on from pick and ban phase, by the way.
So basically, this is something which Maple Street was talking about. Basically, Aphelios is really hard to punish in lane because he has Severum, and that means that, like, if you go poke into him, it's just like the health advantage doesn't really stick. No. The problem is, like, Varus still has wave clear versus Aphelios. Aphelios can't punish the Varus. He can sit in mid lane eventually, and he still sucks versus Chains of Corruption too. Like, he still gets blown up in a team fight. Like, he still gets 100 to 0'd. So I think that Varus has the option to go either build versus him, depending on what team comp is. Aphelios tends to win lane. I don't know whether that's the thing on this patch or on 10.5, really, because obviously he's much stronger in 10.5.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, Varus is happy with the Aphelios matchup. If anything, he probably just wins lane with that. Sam, can you remember what the other thoughts I had? No, because a complete mind blank, actually.
Because obviously the idea is that Aphelios can heal up from the poke, right? But actually there's also been this conversation, again, this was something that Cloud Templar was talking about as well. It was like, actually, Varus was something else that bursts. So was Syndra, for example. Or Corki is the other Syndra, where actually
Syndra, Corki, Graves.
Actually late game, whereas normally you say that Varus kind of falls off late game because he has to go towards lethality. The moment you pair him up with something else that can do the extra bit of health bar damage, any carry will die to that poke.
Yeah, so that's why I was asking about particularly the Corki and the Graves earlier in terms of the meta stuff, because if they come in and you pair that with a Varus, like, we saw it happen in the SKT in the finals, right? Yeah. In LCK, Tier 1.
And that'll work on 10.5.
So, like, there's so many ways this pick and ban can go. We could literally spend, like, an hour and a half on this, so I don't mind leaving it now. So I kind of wrote down very quickly the picks and bans, which I think Rek'Sai, it has to be banned versus Boogie. I think he's
very, very good.
He just ruins lanes with it. Renekton, you can if Ebby gets Renekton, I'm pretty sure DFM win pretty much any game. He's too good in lane on it, and then just runs over the enemy top laner. Varus and I think Rumble for Rumble.
Unless DFM pay it, that's always an option.
The Rumble, yeah, maybe. I don't think it'll ever be played top lane in this matter. There are too many things which just crapping it like Aatrox. But I think, like.
But then this is assuming, right, that you guys are just saying that DFM are banning the same way.
Exactly right. But that's what we're working off. But I think in terms of what we've seen from the players playing those champions, I think those four in particular between both teams should be high priority.
So who are going to be key players in these matches outside of obviously Ebby and Boogie? Right? Are they just kind of the two main players?
I think it'll be the top 2v2 for me. Because interestingly, for all we've been praising Ace and a bit worried about Sarah's champion, I actually don't think either player is going to win or lose lane particularly hard. Actually, I think it's going to be
why I'm like
the level 1s and the top 2v2.
For me, it's more about the champion picks than the players in some ways. But I think it's important that Ace survives and gets to team fights, and he has to have the right picks to do that. Yeah. I think that if Reyna is on form, that helps so much because his Thresh and his TK supporting his teammates and making them survive team fights is huge, and he was so big in that round. Like, the one player who consistently played well in every game so far for V3 is Reyna. Even in the games they've lost, he's looked super.
I mean, I had my doubts about one set game, but I know you disagree with me on that.
Oh, the second game. Yeah, true. Yeah, I thought he was fine in that. And then for me, it has to be Ebby in a lot of ways, but in some ways, it's tied to Steel too, right? Because DFM as a team need Ebby to be the pressure valve that just crushes lane and comes into a team fight, being so much more valuable than his opponent, because he is the person who will do that better than anyone else in the LJL, I think. And having Steel Path early mean that he shields top lane and also threatens the enemy top laner. It secures that advantage so much more easy. So for me, it is top side for DFM. Because I don't think the bot lane is going to be too heavy on the 2v2 kills, although I could be completely wrong.
Could be wrong.
So, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, like, I will also be really interested on that front, because the other option for V3 is that they go back to when they started their win streak and they say, we index into a roaming pick mid, we get Boogie on a carry jungler that can dive, and we basically shove up bot lane and we dive at pretty much any given minute in the game. So we could see that as an option, as like, we trade pressure, let Ebby kind of have his way in the top side, but we blow open bot side.
And that's assuming Ebby actually wins, like, definitively. This is Paz, he's not going to roll over. Like, Apperman wasn't
remember
rolling
the last time
over.
we saw these guys. Remember the last time we saw these guys?
Yeah,
They both had like 11 plus kills.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
they could have a bloodbath, or
there
they
was,
could
like,
do
every-
top lane LCK things, which is what I hope they're going to do. They're not going to, but I would like them to do top lane LCK things where nothing happens, and it's good.
I don't know. Top lane LCK's been a bit of a mess over playoffs.
Well,
Like, there was some weird solo kills.
Genji aren't what they were. So
Silas Orn solo kills both way were weird stuff.
It's the new Corki Azir. It's Silas Orn.
It's kind of tilted. So who do we actually think is going to do better though against Sengoku? Which of these teams would you give it to going against Sengoku? Who's going to beat Sengoku maybe at this point?
Based off of what Sengoku showed in their games, I think V3 have a better reliable answer to Varus Victor, long range backline stuff.
That we've seen.
That we have seen. I think that Apperman showed that with the right pick and ban that he could just survive versus Ebby, whereas Apperman and Paz kind of play the same style where they just turn up to a team fight eventually.
Sure.
Although Apperman has a bit more of the aspect of 1v1ing random side lane stuff.
I pick a Yorick today.
Yeah. I think that Ace's champion pool is better than Seros's, and he wouldn't necessarily... Again, he just survives lane, but he has the champion picks to make himself effective. The problem for me is that maybe Archer and Reyna get out 2v2'd a bit better, because I think that Yutapon and Gang tend to survive 2v2 a little better than Archer and Reyna based off of what we saw in the matches so far. In terms of overall, I would give it to V3, but that's based off of what we've seen. The other thing is like... Well, this is going to apply to both teams.
That's all I wanted. That's what I...
Sorry, is this versus Sengoku Gaming?
This is versus Sengoku. Out of DFM and V3, who do you think is going to just do better?
I think
we're going into a huge amount of points about this. It's just after we've been talking about them specifically in a matchup.
Yeah, I think probably DFM, if only because I think game 4 and 5 were weird drafts from DFM where they thought they had something and didn't, whereas I actually think game 2 and 3 were pretty convincing for me.
I disagree. It's weird. I just think they got out-drafted.
I think game 4 and 5 were bad from DFM.
Yeah,
I think
they
just draft like
exactly, because I think that was just a bad draft from them, and I don't think they would necessarily do that again.
We've seen them do some questionable drafts
in
spring
I didn't think they do it at the time. I didn't think they did it at the time they did it.
Yeah. Because the thing is, you saw what they wanted to do. I just don't think they worked, because we saw like game 4 where they got really ahead with an R and then just couldn't close it out.
I just don't think the Nar's a good pick. Full stop.
I agree. I think
in that comp by itself, yeah, I agree.
I mean, no, so
with other
me,
stuff,
I think that Nar is just not.
I just don't think Nar's a good pick, and I think there are other champions you can pick for the exact that do very similar things, just better.
Yeah.
So
I think that if you want to crush lane, honestly,
I'd rather him playing Gangplank every time he picks Nar. I think almost every time. Not every time.
You don't get a frontline that way, but like GP against the teams that like the stuff that was he even banned actually?
No,
GP wasn't banned.
No, he was open. He could have picked them.
Yeah, and then Eddie plays good GP.
And again, GP does the same kind of thing, which we were talking about with V3 in terms of
if you want a better team fighter, you could pick like a Lowy.
So,
it's garbage, but it's something.
I wouldn't.
Silas is an option.
You're not so reliant on the whole transformation bullshit, which caught Ebby out a bunch.
Yeah, well, exactly. That was the point. It was the only engage they had, and it was unreliable. So my point being is like we know Ebby's got other picks that he plays to an excellent level. I think if they don't index as hard into the weird draft they did, I think DFM will stand a much better chance. And I think when they did have a much more competitive draft in 2 and 3 and didn't have the weird level 1, they looked good.
No, I'm cutting this. No.
Go for it. That's fine.
We're talking about the finals in a moment. You guys can get all of that off your chest in a bit. Who's going to win the semi-finals though? Raw score. I want to rip that bandage. I want the score and who's winning. Now, Initialize.
DFM 3-1.
Okay. Nymaera.
V3 3-2.
I can see that.
Yep.
I think V3 3-1. I think they're going to just outdraft DFM, and DFM are going to get one good game. But where they play like DFM should, I think outside of that, I think sadly DFM, unless they draft well, and I'm open to the fact, if they draft well, DFM can win this.
They can do, yeah. And this is why, there's a caveat in here from me, basically saying, in game 1, both of these teams are going to come in with some predetermined notion coming into it.
Lots of feeling.
They're gonna so for me it's gonna be like, okay, maybe V3 come in like they did against CJ and just have like the wrong idea, and some maybe DFM come in like game 1, 4, and 5 against Sengoku and have the wrong idea. And if you take an easy win or an easy loss because you've just completely misjudged it, that could be the difference between a 3-2 and a 2-3 for me, right? So for me, it is close. I was quite confident on V3 a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm probably less confident now. I think it's more like a 55-45, 60-40.
Do you want me to give some info that I found while I was perusing some services which we will not advertise on our podcast? Betting websites. We can talk about it. We can't. I just. It's not something I would be particularly interested in.
I am curious to see what the odds are.
DFM are just hard favorites to win. DFM are 1-to-1 basically. If you put a tenner on, they'll at most give you an extra £1 back. Yeah. Whereas V3 are 1-to-9. If you put a tenner on, you'll get 90 quid.
Not bad.
I am very surprised that that the bookies are that heavy on. This was only on one website, by the way, so it might be different. But I was almost tempted to put a tenner on V3 for that odd. I was like, how the fuck do you think it's that bad for V3?
That's a day's wage.
So I mean, like, I will say, like, I mean, we've have context of people in the upper bracket losing a semi-final in weird fashion of 3-2. Say hello to Mad Lions versus G2, and then G2 come back and roll it. Because they kind of realized what they'd done wrong, got serious, and.
But I don't think DFM are G2.
That was also
in some ways
that was
they
also
kind
a
of are at the LJL though.
Sam,
at least in terms of dominance.
But that was a second matchup though. That was actually like going to the lower bracket and facing the same team again with the learning.
Yeah, if that was Sengoku, I'd totally agree with you, and I think they could do it. 100% with you, Sam, on that. I think, if they win this series, I think they could beat Sengoku.
Yeah. Plus, I also.
But they have to first do that.
But I will also say, like, but we will also say, as like context for the world, we've also seen a lot of series get 3-0'd where teams got hard outdrafted. One in the draft, we saw it for C9.
But do you think DFM are going to be the ones that hard outdraft V3?
I think they do.
How? I'm interested. No, seriously, I'm going to diverge the whole podcast. I honestly want to try and figure out where you're going with this because I just don't understand how you think maybe I'm wrong. Nymaera, am I just wrong? And I think DFM draft pretty poorly half the time. They're very face up.
They haven't in the regular season.
They've hamstrung themselves towards the end. I think the start of the regular season, they were drafting.
But they were also just better than everybody at the rate.
And they were just outperforming in most roles. Yes. I think that towards the later part, teams have started drafting more about what they want for a team composition rather than taking away from DFM's kind of setup thing.
Yeah,
that has definitely drafting towards yourself rather than against your enemy. And I think that because certain players in DFM have not been sticking the landings, I think particularly Steel and Saros have not done that 100% of the time. Sometimes they have done, and it's looked great, but it's just not happened enough to make it worth drafting around that. So I think, and the other thing for me is that V3 drafts so differently from game to game. I don't think there's going to be a 3-0. It can't be for me. They just draft so differently between game to game.
Well, I mean, initially I said it was probably 3-2.
Yeah, I said 3. I see 3-1.
Oh, 3-1. Okay, we were just on the opposite side, right? Okay.
So my thing is, I think DFM have got a lot of experience in terms of being in these situations and drafting across a number of years in different metas. I will also say I think Kazu and On Air are very good at that. We've seen that across their entire careers, particularly On Air. I also have got some things about. I have concerns about where Paz goes, how much influence Paz has on a game off Aatrox and Renekton.
GP.
Yeah, but again, sorry, Aatrox and GP. Well, was what I meant to say. I think his Renekton's okay.
His Renekton's very good. Go watch the last Splits finals. No, the semi-finals. He was really good on it then.
Yeah, I think it was really good. It was versus Nap though, who I also don't think punishes.
I really like Nap.
I think Nap plays weak side really well. We've been over that before. I think Nap plays weak side super well.
I also think Paz plays weak side. I think Paz plays weak side pretty well too.
Pretty well. But I kind of have curiosity about how good will Boogie play focusing around top side, because he's largely been. Well, I mean, mid-split, it was diving bot side.
Oh, I don't agree with that. His Gragas games have been really good around top side, thinking about it.
Okay, that's fair. The Gragas games, I agree
I think that actually...
I mean, the Echo games, the Elise games are much more around bot.
I think that honestly, the thing about Boogie, the only thing that's consistent about him is that he always team fights aggressively. He can gank anywhere, but he always team fights aggressively. That's what I call Boogie. But anyway, we had.
But he did a lot of focus around the bot lane, and we saw that kind of go wrong for the Echo, right, in the series versus CGA as well. Like,
yeah, but that's also due to double exhaust and shit like that.
Yeah, but I mean that has been V3's all these Boogie's modus operandi.
So you basically made the point about experience between DFM and V3. So I'm going to counter something with that. Yeah, this is going to be online now, right? It's online.
Yes.
So it's not in person, and that means that it's closer to a scrim environment, probably better in terms of settling nerves for people like Archer, for me. I think it also means that the mechanical players like Boogie will be more comfortable trying to make their crazy-ass plays. I think that being online is a big factor for
that's
V3.
a bit of an assumption, because actually C9 deliberately moved locations because they thought it was far too... They actually weren't getting into the zone because they were playing online, had to move somewhere else to get into that kind of environment. So that's not necessarily...
I'm just saying that because Archer was really phased in their series versus CGA, and I think this can only benefit him in particular. And I think Archer, when he's been on, has been really good.
He has been good.
I also do agree to some extent that the whole... I'm a big fan of tenure, as I've always been. I think experience and longevity in a league is good. I don't think V3 are really the team you should be saying
because
that to. Yeah. Like I mean, outside of Archer, who is brand new, he's the rookie. This is his rookie split, so I totally agree with you on that one. Every other member has been playing professional League of Legends since at minimum 2017. That's 3 years
at least.
Sure.
Under their belts,
it's
and they've had to be playing
as a squad.
Yeah, no, but like I still think 3 years of playing professional League of Legends outside of Archer is enough to kind of feel at least somewhat confident, because they've all had to play this. I mean, for God's sake, Paz is almost a fucking old man at doing this. Him and Ebby have almost been trading things. I mean, for God's sake, Paz was on fucking DFM as their top laner back in 2017. Like, and then went to Pentagram and did all that, and then everything else. Like, I see your point. I respect it. I disagree with it, because I think there are lots of players that have
in terms of
played
DFM
international well.
Yeah, I'm saying DFM as a squad have been together for a very long time.
But I think that more than anything might be doing negative effects as...
Sam put it... But what... So the thing for me is that
DFM... I just don't expect to punish Seros particularly.
But the thing for me is that Seros
that's a different point.
Well out of a very certain... Yeah, I also think that Seros just doesn't... He won't punish Ace's champion pool. I think that Ace has the champion pool to survive.
But my point being is I don't think the mid lane's going to be all that much of an impact. Which
well, Sam,
how you punish DFM.
So I know you're talking about like DFM, like in terms of being on the same page, playing all sorts of stuff. I counter that with the Galio game, which Seros had.
That is just one game.
No, but there have been a couple of games where they just haven't.
I love. It was not a good game.
That was a great game.
It was so bad. It was so bad.
It was such a good game. No, because it exploited a flaw.
It was really fun.
Was that versus V3?
Versus V3.
It was versus V3.
So the thing for me is that when we talk about V3 in terms of like, oh, are they on the same page and stuff like that, you have to kind of look about how are they initiating, are they on the same page? For the most part, yeah, they have been. The problem for me is like when they have been, so it kind of goes back to like, oh, what have we learned about these teams? You can nullify stuff like Echo from Boogie or the Nidalee or whatever. Take double exhaust, take some peel, instant CC. It's really, you just pin him in place and kill him. We saw that happen to Arya as well. So two of our MVP candidates, Ebby and Arya, not Ebby and Arya, Boogie and Arya.
I mean, Ebby and Arya is still fine to say.
Yeah, sure, but like we've seen it, particularly with their Echo games, right? Versus Rascal Jester and then CJ versus V3. We've seen that pick be nullified, and like some of the more aggressive picks kind of been whatever. And part of that is also like, you know, your defensive synergy, not just your aggressive synergy. But I think V3 on the whole, we've not seen them be completely dislocated a lot, if any time.
I mean, I think between the three of us, regardless, because I would like to move this on a little bit further, we're all very excited for this game to happen.
Should be massive.
Absolutely.
And the thing is, we're going to be nitpicking this series. So what I am thinking of doing, and I'm more than happy to say this live on the podcast, we will probably do a complete breakdown of pick and bans throughout all of it. Expect another very long podcast with lots of show notes, because we're going to be having to link to many things. We are going to be covering every single game, pick and ban phase, and key moments throughout that draft. We might try and have in podcast video. I will try and see if I can do that for specific clips and moments, so we could stream it between the three of us. I almost said 4 of us, there's only 3 of us, but stream between the 3 of us so you guys could see what I'm playing and hear it, and the listeners or viewers could also do that.
Oh, you can do a screen share or something. Or...
oh yeah, no, it's also trying to figure out how the podcast can get it. I'm putting my producer hat on, but yes, do expect a complete breakdown because we are very excited for this. Any closing thoughts on the semi-finals, gentlemen?
I think that it's a really close thing to call in a lot of ways because there are so many moving parts, and that's just what we see on the surface. We've had a long time off. There have been a lot of changes to the format as well. Of course, it's going online. These players have had more than enough time to pick up new champions now if they wanted, actually. You know, there's been a freaking month between these kind of things. Like a pro player, you ask them in 2 weeks, okay, yeah, maybe they're starting to pick stuff up. Having a month means that these people are probably dusting off something they've had on the shelf for a while and going like, this will be fun. The coaching staff have had free reign to do whatever they want. And for me, it's going to be game 1 could determine it because a free win or a free loss with like
could change
first
everything.
Ideas coming into it could be the difference between a 2-3 and a 3-2.
Yep. Yeah. I think it's weirdly it's like because normally we've seen it before, like LCK Gauntlet. The team that is the team at the finals often loses, particularly to T1 because they're kind of cold and they get the wrong read on the meta. Both teams could do this again because it's been 4 weeks. It's basically coming in fresh to playoffs again, and then they have to go into a finals the day after, where Sengoku Gaming could be in the same position because they're not going to have the same chance to change anything. So it could end up being a wrong take on that day again. So I'm really interested to see how that goes.
So let's move in to the finals. The winner of the semi-finals will be going into the finals, obviously, to face against Sengoku Gaming. Sengoku Gaming have been looking incredibly strong throughout playoffs, obviously beating DFM. They also went into playoffs incredibly strong, taking out that second seed. Though my personal problems with how the LJL split works, spring split works, with it not being best of 3 games, as I have made vocal, I think does not allow for enough games, and I think it would be very interesting to see more games. Potentially V3 could have taken that second spot. We don't know because we didn't have enough games. But I will stop putting my own personal political take on this. We might not have spring splits moving forward anywhere, so it doesn't matter. This is as political as I get. I start talking about spring splits and whether they should happen or not. Like that's the extent of politics I care about. Spring split and should it happen? Vote MaskedSwan 2021 for your spring split if you don't want a spring split anymore, because I don't. But that's
I think for LJL it's alright. Well, we're gonna
whatever. Let's go talk about the finals.
There needs to be a viable replacement, but we'll get there sometime.
Sengoku. My first bullet point, which will also link into my second bullet point, gentlemen. I don't really want you to be going further, but you can free reign of the first 2. We are going to be having to talk about a lot of these teams, so please make your points very clear on which team you are talking about. How will each of these teams perform against Sengoku? Let's start with V3 first.
So I have one thing. Okay, so can I have one point which kind of links differently to each team?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So the first thing is that we have seen this format from NA and EU in terms of playoffs format, right? Where you have an upper bracket, you have like a losers kind of round 3, and then you kind of have the winner of that go back into the finals, and that potentially gives you a chance to have someone dropping down and then having a double elimination without a bracket reset.
Yep.
So
God, can you imagine doing bracket resets?
No, you can't do that.
Oh God, we're not FGC. We can't do that shit. It would take 10 hours for a 5.
So either way, Sengoku sitting in the finals at the outcome of this match will have an extra 3 games minimum to watch, and they will
only have a day to check it.
They only have a day to check it. They're not coming in cold to this format like you would do in a gauntlet system like the LCK. They have played already, and they have already won to earn themselves a spot in the finals, and now they have extra footage against their eventual opponent to come into this finals for. We have statements from C9 players, GT players, Fnatic players saying that the person waiting in the finals, it is beneficial for them to be waiting in that finals as opposed to the gauntlet system, which Sam was alluding to, saying maybe they have the wrong meta, blah, 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 all this other stuff. And I get that it's different because we've had such a long break, but it's on the same patch, it's the same teams, you know roughly who you're going to be playing against and stuff like that. Basically, what Reckless was saying, what Perks was saying, what Sven was saying is that you just have to play less games and you don't have to come off of a fatigue preparing against, 2 teams to play definitely, right? So DFM, they've lost a series to them, so they have a loss in hand. And even though they have this excellent coaching staff, having this negative kind of outset of, well, we're going to have extra games which our opponents will see of us, and we also have this flaw of, if we have this prep absolutely scuppered and our level 1s are not good because of all this extra prep, I think this particular facet affects DFM more than V3, who have been more adaptable in-game as well as out of game. Just to say, right, okay, Sengoku might have more info to put on us, but who can we adapt better in-game? So I think for me, V3 are going to do slightly better in that department than DFM.
I will contest it slightly, and I think
absolutely.
Specifically around the thing that, like, Sengoku aren't coming in cold. I kind of disagree, because I think all 3 teams are coming in super cold. It's been 4 weeks. That is a massive amount of time to be not on inverted commas stage.
I want to interject here. Sorry, Initia1ise, but if they're all coming in cold, it's neither good or bad for anyone.
That's kind of my point, though. So that's kind of my deal. Because actually, that's kind of my point.
Okay.
Is like that.
You almost made it seem like Sengoku were getting the worst off, and I was like, I don't think I agree at all.
That's my point. And I'm not sure actually, because my point is, then I have to ask who comes in best from the cold.
Can you let him talk? Because he's so desperately trying to pour away. Go on, Nymaera, go on. Yan away.
Quickly. No, actually, there is an argument to say Sengoku are worst off from this, because everyone's coming in cold, and the semi-final teams will have played on stage at least within the last 4 weeks.
You just went against your own point.
No, but there is an argument. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm saying there's an argument that basically the semi-final winner will have played games on stage.
I want opinions. This is our podcast.
No, but you have to.
Oh no, I agree.
Entertain it, right? You have to entertain it. I think that still, like, Sengoku still have more games to watch, right? But then there is the argument, well, they still haven't played in 4 weeks, the other team will have. So carry on. Sorry.
Go on.
I mean, there's also a question, like, specifically for Sengoku Gaming, how much, like, this is more of a question about their coaching staff and how well prepped they are about how much can they take from a series the day before, disseminate it, and put it into a workable plan for the day after. We think that's exactly it. So Blank is fantastic at it. How much of those jungle pathing is relevant to that series that we'll play tomorrow? The other thing is, like, so, like, in terms of, like, that's partly down to how good is your coaching stuff and how good is your preparation, Mike? Because you can say, okay, here are some things that might happen in the semi-finals. If X happens, we can use Plan B. If C happens, X happens, Plan B. And if you've done enough preparation, you can say, okay, these things happen that we thought might happen. That means we can do this tomorrow because we know these things. That can be an option. Mm-hmm. The other thing, though, is that where before, like, so this is potentially another counterpoint to this kind of idea that it's good to be waiting in the finals because you have less fatigue. That's true, but 4 weeks is a long time to prep for any team, and I think you can do the same. That'd be a long time to prep for 2 teams, actually. So I think you've actually got enough time there to prep for 2 teams pretty well. The question is, I suppose, is like, how relevant will your scouting be? Because before you could say, I know this team played this the week before, they're not going to have that much time to change. How much time, like, you could have these kind of assumptions about this team, because it's almost like coming into Spring Split again, right? After I mean, it's not quite the same because the patches haven't changed, and that's a big deal. So, there is that. But how much actually changes? How much will the team change within those 4 weeks? And how much will have you been able to scout? Because you don't necessarily know what they've been doing in scrims for that time.
That is true.
So I have these questions in mind. Like, it's a bit difficult to say because it is such a unique circumstance coming into the finals and these semi-finals. That I think preparation and also just, like, good research, good planning will come out massive dividends. Because I think it's going to be a real challenge to scout other teams in this space. And how well you've done that either through luck and kind of decent, kind of just good guesswork and good groundwork. Yeah. And how much you've actually managed to pick up from saying, I've seen them do this, X, Y, and Z. This is what
a lot of it comes through shadowboxing, right?
Yes.
I mean, I think if anyone's got a benefit in this sense, it's just Sengoku outright. They can just go. They can just go. This is what they did. We can take it with a pinch of salt, as they should. They should also be well aware, as it is insane in my head, that these 3 teams aren't scrimming each other on some regular basis. I mean,
the other teams are just stuck around.
They should be scrimming the other teams, but they know Sengoku are going to be around because they have to be, because they have finals. Whether any other team, I mean, currently as we're doing this, Gango and Tussle are currently streaming on Twitch. So like,
wow.
I mean, quite clearly players are now still actively playing. I saw Adia streaming yesterday or the day before. So like,
Aria and Boogie are dueling, by the way, guys.
Wow.
they're dueling, and also Adia is
won it.
streaming. So like so I now finally have a link for him, because after a year of having dead links, I now have a link. So check out our Discord, because we got that stuff vaguely going down. I'm still trying to figure out the other stuff, but that's beside the point. I think Sengoku just have prep time, right? I think V3 are going to be more fluid because they can modify and change things up, and Sengoku are going to be aware of that, as I believe their matchup in spring was Sengoku going 2-0, but that was a different V3, if I remember, because that was
also the first game versus
week
V3 was
it was like week 2 and week 4.
Yeah, because it was before they were on the hot streak, so this is a very different.
Yeah, both teams weren't fantastic in those games.
Like, nope. No, they were not.
There was
Sengoku were just slightly better because they had Yutori Muashi.
No, we've mentioned.
We can just say it was just a random game that they happened to play.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened.
Nymaera. No, we've not mentioned a game which was horrible and you shouldn't.
Very good. Yes. So I will put that in the show notes.
I mean,
but these are two different teams, and that's why I think it'll be far more interesting to see that. Whereas I think if DFM are able to learn from past mistakes, they could have an edge. The big thing and the huge question mark is, one, I need to see DFM draft like they used to, because if they can do that, then sure, I could give it to them. But if they can't draft, I'm sorry, they're gonna just get 3-0'd versus Sengoku, who are prepared for them.
I find it really hard to dismiss the, what are we on, 2-time, 3-time reigning champions of the LJL.
Yeah, but they don't look anywhere near as dominant as they used to.
Who went 12-2 in the regular season and had one bad series. Like, I find that very difficult to suddenly dismiss.
Yeah, but their last 2 weeks, week 6 and week 7, were a very different DFM compared to.
And then they also lost the series already. So.
Yeah.
So, like, it's not like they're infallible.
And they went 1-1 versus both V3 and Sengoku. Their 2 losses are to the 2 teams that are in the semifinals and finals. Like, the reason we have to downplay it, in my eyes, and sorry, Nymaera, but I want to finish this point. These are 2 teams that can actually go to the undisputed champions of the LJL and actually go, your time's up. A dynasty has to end at some point.
And also,
like, there is a questions being asked, but I don't think it's easy to dismiss it either, because I don't think the last 2 weeks were that bad. They had the one weird game versus V3, but they also absolutely ran over teams. Remember, they had that perfect game in the last week too.
Not quite perfect. It was only Rascal Jester that got the perfect. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, there was the Axis game, but even then I thought that Axis actually had a way into that game. It was just a really unfortunate early snowball. I think that actually if the early game hadn't gone that way, that's another topic, but I think
I immediately wanted to go with you on that, but I was like, I shouldn't.
Yeah, because there's stuff like actually Hoglet and Gadiadu played really well in that game, and it could have gone very different.
They did, and their vision was actually really well played by Corporal.
I think their bot lane, and their bot lane fell apart like really hard that game.
Yeah,
really hard. That was the Senavaris lane, which was just horrifying. The other thing for me is that actually we're talking about, well, you know, you can't dismiss this stuff and all the other things, right? But we've got players in these lineups which have been to Worlds, won Worlds, been to MSI, you know, done well in group stage and all this other stuff, right? Arguably, I think that a lot of players in these teams, you know, particularly, you know, Blank, Pyrian being ex-SKT members, Boogie being ex-Flash Wolves, have reached higher heights than DFM ever have before. Sure. And I think that they've been on bigger stages.
That's a fair argument.
And I think the other thing is that, you know, like, this is now online. Whatever specter behind DFM might phase them, I actually don't know if it will be there.
There is a bit of the mystique gone, that's for sure.
Exactly. So for
the
me,
question is whether that's enough, and I'm not sure it is.
Yeah, particularly for the very streaky players like Blank and Archer and stuff like that, and Ace as well to an extent, I think that can only be in their advantage. Well, no, sometimes people are really big game players, but I think that there is an aspect there which means that they won't be under so much threat.
Okay, so we're all hovering around the kind of thing because none of us really know how it's going to go, which obviously I think is a fair point because and
it's wonderful not to know.
Absolutely. I mean, though that would make content already knowing. I mean, I would be like, get all your money on one person, put your life savings on it, it's a guaranteed win. Like, yeah, obviously that'd be.
We're not doing that to you.
No, that's too hard to call. Okay, so Sengoku could be good. DFM and V3 also look like they could definitely take a series. I want to go back to pick and ban phase. for both V3 and DFM facing off against Sengoku. We have seen Sengoku be maybe the master craftsman of the LJL because they were able to go toe-to-toe in a very scratch that. I'm actually lying out my ass because they got perfect gamed by Rascal Jester. So,
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
Where was I going with this? I was like, oh no, they can go toe-to-toe with the best drafters of the region. No, actually, they just got out-drafted and then stomped.
It was not good.
By the master drafters.
So I mean, I think we've seen them evolve in a draft so very well over the split though, right?
But they're not the master drafters because that's Rascal Jester, and then I forgot that they got stomped by Rascal Jester in that perfect game I keep saying. So, that doesn't matter because Rascal Jester are actually our master drafters. Or
I mean, V3 put double perfect game Burning Core, didn't they?
Not official perfect, almost
Almost
perfect. They got the almost perfect.
Right,
Rascal Jester the only one with the official perfect game because it's so benign on the requirements. But where do we see this going? Are we going to see DFM do what they did against Sengoku again? Are we going to see potentially V3 if they're against Sengoku? How does that go down, gentlemen? I'm interested in your thoughts.
You got something to lead off with this, Sam? I just want to.
So I think for
go
V3,
DFM first or V3. I don't know.
I think V3 Sengoku would be a particularly interesting matchup, and I think V3 are going to be very indexed into early game. Either just very aggressive junglers, or it'll be their style of diving bot. And I also think diving bot would make a lot of sense versus Sengoku Gaming when you know their major win condition is Toroma. Like, that man is such a consistent carry.
Yeah.
That if you can take him out of a game, they've got Pyrian. And Pyrian is good. I don't know whether he's quite the same level of carry player that Yutaro Mayashi is. For Sengoku Gaming, though, they are fantastic at reading and mitigating early game. Blank, if he's got a good level 1 read, can kind of take apart somebody else's plan and then sort of enact his own. We've seen what he does on things like Elise, particularly, is really good at doing that. And I think if Sengoku Gaming can get the control with the Victor and Avaris, say, and kind of stop V3 from their early game snowball, I think Sengoku have ways in as well. I'm not sure which way. I think I go Sengoku way because I think they're very good at nullifying. And I think Blank reads people really well.
But you look at like game 2 of their game versus DFM.
Oh, that was
they were down 3,000 gold. The thing for me, so DFM in their series versus Sengoku, they got. Do you want to know how many Barons they got over the 5 games?
Go for it.
1. They had 1 Baron. So DFM had 1 Baron versus Sengoku in the entire series.
Wow, that's huge.
I'm gonna say it, and this is gonna be probably something which could be sound clip. That is unacceptable. You cannot go a best of 5 versus a competitor in your region and have 1 Baron the entire series.
That's not good.
I think this does speak volumes to Sengoku and how they play around objectives and how they play with early game momentum, right? Because they do snowball neutrals into neutrals.
True.
I think that when they did lose, largely it was through just raw laning prowess from Ebby going into team fights and stuff. It wasn't necessarily about the objectives. And I think that V3 are potentially better at hard engaging around those kind of things too, because again, they're not playing around just like solo Nara engage or something like that, right? Yep. So, it's going to be
a really interesting statistic to watch for the DFM versus V3 game and see how many Barons that V3... DFM game, rather. DFM.
I need to finish off this point.
Yeah, go for it.
Obviously...
I just want to emphasize
in isolation, exactly right. But the reason why this stat is bad, DFM aren't G2. They're not a team where they can go against SKT and only have 2 Barons the entire series and still win the game because they know how to punish the Baron team very well. They know how to, make people take the bad trade and kind of say, look, you're going to take the Baron, but we're going to take a Drought Mountain Soul or something like that. Or the like, or trade for something across things. They're not G2. They are still within this LJL.
They're not C9.
Or something like that, right? But the thing is that G2...
Well, C9 super objective focused, so...
Sure, but this is the thing, right? G2 last year showed that Baron could actually be a negative thing to take because you don't have the footing to use it with anything and you've lost something in trade to it.
Okay.
So for me, like, I look at DFM kind of going into this and I'm like, there are a lot of things they have to change to really, they have a lot of problems which potentially haven't been mitigated, and they have a lot of things burgeoning behind this. Where I'm like, okay, well, how far does this go down in terms of their drafting, the way they were playing around the map, playing in lanes sometimes as well? They have the ability to mitigate these things. They have a great coaching staff. They have a lot of tenure.
I'm just going to add a note for our content video, because I think you've just literally hit on one of the. Oh, it'll be just so cool to do.
Can I chime in on the end of that?
Okay.
Absolutely, no, go for it.
Because I think it was quite interesting. I think specifically around that. So if you go back and watch that Sengoku DFM series, you saw how DFM wanted to play, which was particularly in the NAR games, or even the Renekton games as well.
Play around diving top laners.
But exactly, and the idea is we index for early towers, and they basically gave up dragon control completely, and they just weren't interested in playing for objectives. They were interested in playing for lane control and towers, and that was their read on how you wanted that. It did not work. It kind of worked with the Renekton, and they got 2 games at it, but particularly the last 2 games where they tried to turn back to being more objective focused in the game 5, and it looked bad. Like, it did not look good. That Nard turned up and was not doing anything.
I mean, they were also playing versus like an Olaf with lane priority.
Yeah.
Like two Varus, and what was the mid lane of that game? Was it the Varus Victor, right? So it's Victor actually gets quite a lot of lane prio against some matchups. I actually think that Syndra should get lane prio.
Oh no, because remember Victor was backing, like, he didn't die, he survived.
But remember, like, for the first clear where Olaf would run in run into the red buff, walk across the map to his red buff, walk through mid lane which had prio, and just like take 3 buffs and double scuttle. Like that sucked, man. That sucked for DFM. Yeah.
I mean,
but if DFM had top and mid lane pushing for both of those games, I will say that. But
I mean, okay. So the thing is, every single time we're talking about this, especially for DFM because of Ebby, but it's a point that I'm interested. You both keep making, and I'm really interested. You both assume Ebby's just going to win and always going to have a flawless series, potentially both times. What happens when it doesn't go perfectly? Or what happens if, because he's human, he could make a mistake, and Paz and Appamen are both good enough players, more so Paz in my eyes, who can punish. And I'm just interested. I think there are certain players on all 3 of these teams that could be punished.
Remember game 1
and
Sengoku,
specifically when it comes to their champions, they could get horrendously punished. We saw Ebby on his Gnar getting punished for that pick, and I want to kind of just ask that question as we're talking about pick and ban phase and stuff. Where does that go? Because I think Nymaera got me thinking around that.
Let me put it this way. I think if I'm going to do a hot take, I think if Ebby loses lane versus one of these teams, DFM loses the series. I'm pretty sure they need Ebby to win lane.
That's horrendous for DFM's outlook.
I will say I think Utapon and Gang we haven't talked about at all, and I think they have been very good.
But in 2v2, their team fights and skirmishes, 2v2 has not been the best thing.
I mean,
I don't think they're the best 2v2 though in the top 3.
That's just Yutori and Enti.
Yeah. I think Enti on mage supports, which we have also, which I think. Well, my question is, like, we have also seen that.
Yutori Marsh is just so
exactly.
Good.
But we have seen Gang. We have seen Gang and Utapon run things like the Ezreal. Oh, sorry, not the Ezreal. The Varus, Senna, and destroy mage sports that way.
But they've been banning Senna, so I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, and we have also seen Ezreal. We've seen them do it on Ezreal Karma too. So like, there is some question about whether they could potentially do that.
I'd rather play Ezreal.
Ezreal Karma is very famous. It's a very good bot lane.
Yeah, but it's not.
I mean, it's a famous duo.
Good.
But if you run that,
just play Yumi.
Yeah, but Sam.
Just play Yumi every time instead of Karma.
And the thing with Yumi is she actually gives you engage.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, she does.
DFM were not drafting enough engage versus Sengoku.
Yes,
they had not reliable engage.
I also think. Sorry, Nymaera, you finish your point. I can keep mine.
Yeah, so I think that if you're gonna run stuff like Ezreal Karma, and Ezreal Senna, particularly stuff like that, or Varus Senna, that is a super squishy bot lane to play against some people who are very good at diving and playing around, killing people. Right?
It's also worth pointing out in week 5 when Sengoku beat DFM, it's when they ran Ezreal Karma and they were really hard pushing in Utoromayashi and NT. It wasn't looking good down there, and Blank turns up and ruins it.
I mean, but also that was because they played super well around neutral objectives, got an Infernal Soul luckily, and then just kind of won the game off poke.
Before we go too far away
Sengoku won that one. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
So, yes. before my point goes too far away, but I really want to hit on that because I think we made a really good point around DFM and a vulnerability that we haven't actually mentioned yet is their reliance on Ebby basically TP winning is scary percentage high. It's 3 games that they've done that, and that is 3 games many that undisputed champions of the region should be doing. I get 1, because everybody messes up and then you need the star player to kind of take control and win the game for them. They cheesed a win off of Axis, which is phenomenal that Axis genuinely could have beaten DFM.
Yeah.
Sengoku got cheesed. They could have been 2-0'd versus Sengoku, which just basically, if you go into playoffs, you just go, well, think they should lose to Sengoku. I think DFM lose to Sengoku.
Did they cheat? Which cheese are we talking about here?
This is when Ebby has...
I would say the Rascal Jester one.
Oh, that was horrendous.
No, in terms of cheat, the thing is, okay.
So
No. So my problem with that is they're not... Every time this has popped up, right, is because Ebby has had to, 1, partly put the game on his back, and 2, DFM had no engage. They had 0 engage, and this is a huge drafting problem that they keep not drafting the...
Those ones.
That's not enough engage. Also,
the Sengoku one, I actually think that DFM played really well around making sure Olaf fell off in the game, because that was the Olaf Soraka game, right?
Yeah, it was.
I would discount that one. I wouldn't mind talking about that too much, because for me, that's a really benefit for DFM, knowing their win conditions. They gave up a Mountain Soul, and then eventually took a Baron, pushed in that 1-3-1 with the job and being able to like disengage and shit like that, and had a Thresh supporting the Syndra.
Yeah.
I thought that they played that one really well. That one for me.
Okay.
There was another couple of games where like Ebby had to, TP in. It's credit to them to problem themselves out of a pretty much.
But they shouldn't have been in that situation in the middle.
But against a team like Sengoku on this kind of macro
and
level,
V3 to now in my
and
eyes.
V3 to an extent, right? I think that you can't do that anymore. Not in their current form. They could come in absolutely like a hot garbage fire because they've not played for so many weeks and they've forgotten everything.
True, and DFM are like, just TP win?
And
Ebby's just like, I'm a master still.
And they've lost like 2 fingers off their left hand and like most of their foot. And like, they could be...
And part of the reason we're saying DFM TP wins because they actually play their side lanes very well. They play their map state and lane control and their like lane states very well. So that's partly why they can do that, is because they can do that against teams that put them in awkward situations, like which is an advantage for them. There is that question though about like, okay, have you actually sorted your draft priorities out though? And have you found yourself that? Yeah,
and lack of engage.
We know you play Varus. We know you play Senna. Why haven't you been picking them?
Yeah, well, they've been banning Senna.
Right, but they play it.
But the thing is, I don't think Senna is a pick because they need to pick engage first for me, because that's been
exactly. And then we do think like Java. We know like Steel and stuff has engage options.
Sam, put it this way: we have seen Sengoku absolutely rip apart Senna lanes. You cannot play Senna into dead Sengoku. If you give them either a Aphelios or Varus, you pretty much just lose the game because you lose solo turret isolated in the 2v2. I think that Archer is also a really good Senna. I think that's arguably been his best champion, even. And also, what pairs up really well with the Senna? The Tahm Kench. And the reason why he's his best champion for the team is that Reyna is 5-0 on Tahm Kench. Really, really good at that.
He's very, very good at Tahm Kench. Reyna's Tahm Kench and Thresh are very, very good.
I know the Thresh. I didn't realize the Tahm Kench was that absurd.
And you know what? His Thresh is also 5-0.
I knew his Thresh was 5-0 because we've mentioned that on a previous podcast. I didn't realize his Tahm Kench was... That's absurd!
But it matches up so well with how Archer likes to play, which is like, I will go forward and fight you, and I know my support will lantern or pull me out before I die, so enjoy this.
It also means that like eventually like Senna can just like sit in lane and Tahm Kench can just be the front line. And also just be a front line and team fight really well around Boogie, because Boogie just... He has an extra safe button there, right? Exactly. And also remember the Thresh didn't... Oh, no, they lost the Thresh game. It wasn't that one. Because they lost the Thresh game versus... there was another thing which they went on. What was the 5-0 one? No, he's 5-0 on Nautilus. That's the other one.
That's the other one.
5-0 on Nautilus and TK, and he's lost a couple of games on the Thresh, but he's looked really good on it.
That's right.
Okay.
So I think that... the Senna might be a trap pick versus Sengoku in particular, but I think that you have to ban it still a lot if you're DFM.
We'll have to think about it because I think they do play it. It'll be an interesting one to see whether they think about picking it or banning it.
I'd rather they just ban Aphelios personally.
Aphelios is very strong on this patch.
I mean,
I'd much rather they go, let the Senna happen. Granted, though, this is 10.5 Senna, so
but
it's so
the thing is,
stupid.
actually, DFM arguably have one of the better ways to counter Aphelios on this patch because they play mages both in mid and bot, which is super outrange Aphelios, and that's like that's kind of like the big ticket way to beat an Aphelios. You play mages which outrange him and just burst him out. So they played Ziggs and Syndra. They can flex Syndra down to the bot lane, played against Aphelios.
I just think Syndra's gonna never be allowed through by both teams. I just don't think
very strong for Ace as well.
Yeah, that's why I don't know if either
Tyrian's
team
not a
will
bad
let it
Syndra as well.
through.
And also, I mean, Ace also plays mid lane Nocturne, and they play it with the Echo and shit. Which
but
is
like, again, Ace is the only. Ace is actually a good mid lane Nocturne as well, whereas I don't think Tyrian's
played it quite badly in the game.
I don't think Nocturne's a priority pick.
I think we'll see it.
I think it is. It is as part of a comp. It is as part of a comp.
Yeah, 100%. And it's the kind of thing that you pick at 4 or 5. You don't pick in 1, 2, 3, or you're just.
It's the absolute it's the straight punch to the face, the sucker punch of you have a backline that needs diving. You know who's
he's Colas.
Yeah, he's just like, it's the press one button. I can do that for you, sir.
Yeah.
And so I think that Nocturne should be a consideration, particularly because of the amount of static backlines we see.
Pick and ban's just going to be so interesting for V3 versus Sengoku.
Because we've had 4 weeks of like absolute theoretical mind palace jargon.
5-head smooth brain.
They've done some some mental expansion therapies. Just sat there and gone like, Nocturne.
They're like. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
All right.
What if we can time travel and get Wukong from patch 10.7?
Oh, that would.
Because this is definitely the issue. Right? It's like there is this point where you mind palace so far,
Wait,
you go down into the mind. You go into the mind palace dungeon.
Still good?
Yeah, she's still good at the point at this moment. People have been playing her and looking good.
Yeah, but is she still good on 10.5, or did she fall off at 10.5? I can't remember.
She's still good. I mean, she's punishable in the way that
she's not the way that she was earlier in 10.1, right?
Like Aphelios can even if he's got no, Aphelios can still Aphelios can still
manhandle everybody.
Yeah, but not just that. Like specifically, like Misfortune doesn't have the sustain that Aphelios does. If someone dives on Aphelios in a 1v1, if he's got say Crescendum and Severum, exactly, and and just throws the healing out. Like we saw Art do it, right? He 1v3 do it.
Win.
Yeah, you can do that. It's harder to do that on Misfortune.
Oh yeah.
What Misfortune does do though is Strut means that effectively you get free Moby boots every 12 seconds. You go and now I'm in mid lane.
Yeah.
Welcome to the bullet time in mid lane out of nowhere. That's the kind of thing you can.
How many Heimerdinger bans or picks do we think we're going to see from DFM?
Assuming
Assuming they make it to Sengoku, I'm interested because
I actually think
Heimerdinger's pretty bad versus poke champions, and Varus kind of stops Heimerdinger being so powerful.
I actually think
the one thing which deals with Heimerdinger is heavy wave clear poke, and you do that shit versus
a Victor.
You do that against Pyrion, who has
Orianna.
LeBlanc. No Morgana.
LeBlanc's not the best thing.
Zoe.
Zoe. That's the same.
Zoe and Varus, right? And Victor's also just puts the laser down. And, the upgraded laser kills the towers, right? Because you don't put multiple ranks into your towers and get them extra HP.
I don't know the matchup, so I'm actually interested. I just want to pick my brain and make me more 5 brain. What's Cassiopeia versus Heimerdinger like?
Not great.
For Cass. Or for
Cass, I don't think so.
For Cass, I thought that's where I thought it was going. But I just wanted to double check that.
Basically, anyone who wants to,
LeBlanc could be a bit risky because you jump forward potentially into the towers, things, and if you get stunned, you can.
That just seems like a bad pick half the time.
Well, you can make it work because you can blow him up.
You don't play the lane versus Heimer. You roam, right?
You get Pryor versus LeBlanc earlier as Heimerdinger, but there's a chance you get LeBlanc has always been really good at gank setups. If you get a chain stuck on you and there's a Jarvan, Olaf. Basically, get any of the Conqueror junglers and also Elise and shit like that. Basically, all of that shit. Or even some, imagine a Graves as well, if people start picking that up as well.
Yeah.
Heimerdinger. Saros is a very good player of the Heimerdinger, though, so maybe they can make it work and just team fight around it.
But then they have to draft a comp around a Heimerdinger. They can't do this Heimerdinger splashing stuff.
And I expect, I think Heimerdinger is more viable versus V3, just because I don't necessarily think Ace would necessarily be looking to win a lane versus it. He'd probably want to roam with Boogie.
Sure.
Rather than beat it down. So I think it's more viable there than Sen got.
But again, I think Heimerdinger is another one of these picks where you have to dive onto it at some point or stuff like that. I think that V3 again have the diving picks like Echo's.
That's
pretty
fair.
good
That's
Echo.
fair.
I also can imagine that some.
Yeah.
I want to say
You stun the
I want to say a champion, and I imagine I'm going to get told off.
Mhm.
But I want to ask the question: Kassadin, right? Like mid to late game, Kassadin just doesn't give a fuck, right?
You can
If
peel.
Heimerdinger has his turrets in the wrong place.
Yeah, if you end up Zhonya's and landing a bomb onto him, like it's really nasty. But again, like it's more about the thing. Kassadin really sucks diving into setup team comps with an immediate CC to answer.
Oh yeah,
That's
it
the main
completely
thing.
comes down to comp picks and
Like
stuff, right?
Kassadin ends up like just crapping on side lanes, but Heimerdinger takes neutral objectives very fast that you can't just sit in a side lane uncontested if you lose.
You're probably going to lose your mid turret.
Heimerdinger just shreds through dragons.
It's just garbage. Yeah, just don't do that.
So I mean,
like,
I don't know, but Kassadin can work into a team comp, right? If they don't have
but
immediate.
it's a team comp thing.
Yeah,
Say they have a
100%.
say they have a Nautilus. Kassadin hates playing against Nautilus because he gets depth charge, he has to jump away, and then otherwise he
It's
just gets blown
pointless,
up,
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stuff like
I mean,
that.
like, like Niski basically had a fantastic point. So I think it was something inside episode where it was Niski and Sven on, where Niski said, "Is Kassadin good?" And goes, "Yeah, Kassadin's good. If you can find a good lane match, basically if you can find a good comp to put Kassadin against, that's when you want to play Kassadin."
Yeah.
It's not whether it's a good lane matchup. It really is a comp thing because
he's a non-typical assassin. Because he's not what he used to be.
I mean, yeah. The other thing I'll say about the Heimerdinger is, before we kind of move on, because we don't want to spend too long on it, like Heimerdinger, if he gets a chance to set up around objectives, can also be really powerful. Not just because he can take them quite fast. Like Heimerdinger with setup time, where you kind of are forced to fight where the turrets are, it's much more obnoxious than say Heimerdinger set up in lane, but actually the fight's somewhere else. Oh shit, there's no turrets here. Heimerdinger's now got no agency. Crap, I'm in the jungle. What am I doing? That's bad. But like when we have seen things like. So like while I was saying like I wonder whether Sengoku have more options into the Heimerdinger, and they probably do. There is a world where actually because DFM are looking to contest or fight Sengoku around, if they get there, of course, fight Sengoku around objectives, and they pick the Heimerdinger because they said, well, okay, if we can get there first, Heimerdinger sets up. Now Sengoku Gaming are going to have.
Well, that depends on prio, and we've seen that Sengoku's lane, Sengoku's bot lane, particularly get prio pretty much in any matchup.
Yeah, we've also seen that, like, I will say they have been contested by Utapon and gangs. That's not necessarily
contested,
guaranteed.
yeah, but not like they even if like they, I don't know. I think that Sengoku got the better of them pretty much every game in the isolated 2v2.
Because I mean, like, okay, so the game DFM won, I'm talking the regular season. The game, I'm trying to remember what the game they won with the Ezreal. I can't remember what the support was. Thresh. Ezreal Thresh. They were being pushed in, but that was somewhat expected with that lane matchup. The game they lost, they were pushing in really hard with the Ezreal Karma and were putting them down quite a lot of CS. At least early on, before things went wrong.
That was Ezreal Karma for Sengoku, right?
No, that was Ezreal Karma for DFM.
I mean, with all respect towards Heimerdinger, I just think he's kind of a garbage champion at the moment. Outside of very specific competitions.
He's been nerfed for sure. Yeah.
I don't think he's worth a ban anymore, and that's the important thing, right?
Yeah,
if they want to pick it, if they want to pick him, you want to do it as a counter pick in a lot of ways. And
I don't.
They should like Syndra is really good because you just pick up his turret and move it, so it stops him from stuff like that, right?
And I also think if you're going to play Heimerdinger, you need Utapon to also be able to play it. I think you genuinely need to be able to flex him into the bot lane, and I don't think Utapon will play Heimerdinger in bot lane, and I totally understand because I think it's kind of garbage in the bot lane personally. But you have to. Then again, have to be able to flex it.
Then again, I would have said the same. I wouldn't have expected Utapon to play Syndra, and yet here we are. So maybe they do. I don't know.
I think that might be more Utapon pulling up the slack because he's potentially just one of the best bot laners.
Utapon used to be a top laner. That was an interesting point.
It's interesting. I think the pick and ban phase for both teams. I think we're giving it an edge to Sengoku slightly versus DFM, but then we're giving it slightly to
from what we've seen
V3 versus Sengoku.
Because like
from what we've seen.
So obviously, just remember it this way. Obviously, like I think it was actually no, because of game 4 and 5, I think it was like it was Sengoku.
Yeah, but it was weird.
Sengoku favor. It was weird, sure, but like because of game 4 and 5 happening, and also just like game 1 was also quite just a smooth sail in from Sengoku. I'd say like, sure, yeah. If you take away the Renekton, then like Sengoku were really in the advantage there. So then you have to take it as a DFM have to somehow overtake Sengoku within this time period of these remaining games. how does that happen? Are they likely to do that? They can do it. Of course they can, right? Because there's, a lot of moving parts, but there still has to be an improvement there, and there's always a chance that they get something wrong.
And they also have to still make the finals. Like, they still...
Exactly.
That's why it's a slight caveat as well.
Yeah. Whereas, I wonder whether, interestingly, versus V3, I wonder, like, because DFM and V3 often play quite different styles. Like, I know obviously there is an element where actually both teams like to play for pressure in lanes.
The question is, if you prepare for one, are you making them double time on the practice, or is it only good versus one team?
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of my point. And like, I also wonder like how many between the various teams, how many picks are going to be super contested.
Syndra.
Sure.
Okay, so for me, I've put down a list of key picks and bans. Like, for Sengoku in a lot of ways, Renekton is going to be huge. Every single top laner left plays a good Renekton, and it gives you so many different things to kind of play around the game at the point where the dragons are starting to stack. So I think Aatrox, Renekton, Set to a lesser extent, but he's still definitely in there.
He's 100% banned, probably, anyway.
I think Ornn should be. At this point.
I think both of those two. I think Ornn and Set are going to be 100% banned.
Plus, assuming
I think
Ebby
Red
plays
Side has
Ornn,
to just ban them. I'm sorry.
Assuming Ebby plays Ornn, that's potential. And I also think, because Seros plays a decent Ornn. He's got solo.
He was alright.
Like, he ended up, I think V3 and Sengoku would be very happy to see Seros on Ornn. I think both teams would be able to draft against that sort of thing.
I think
sure,
Olaf is huge. Olaf is huge for blank. So that's going to be a high pick and ban.
Still, but have we seen Boogie play?
But that's a sinner.
I don't think so.
Elise is a sinner, though.
But I think Elise is really... But Boogie plays her like she isn't. Boogie plays her like she isn't. Because the thing is that basically, Boogie makes it seem like Elise doesn't fall off because he team fights so proficiently on her. So at that point in the game, we're like, at least, like, nah, you can pick her off in team fight. She kind of becomes a bit of the cocoon ball. He plays her, like, frontline Elise with the Zhonyas and Repel and just, like, gets away with shit that no
one else should get away with.
I mean, like, he's unlikely to be your hard carry in the team fight, but he's not...
I don't know, dude. I've seen him pick off 80 carries. There was a game, one of the games versus CGA.
Yeah, but it's been a lot more suspect.
But like, no, his Elise was really good, dude. Like the way he picked off, the way he like picked off Gango and shit in some team fights where like he had no right to do so.
Like I just don't think relying on Elise as your team fight win condition is a great idea.
But it allows you to have this early game snowball into dragon stacking, and then he's also a very good team fight runner. Steel likes to go back to the Elise. Blank is obviously a very good Elise too. And we've talked about how these guys just run over the early game and make it into stuff. Are they Sinner champions according to LS? Yeah, and it can kind of hamstring you a little bit in terms of the late game
in the pick and ban phase more so as well.
But like, if you have Cocoon or like Chain of Corruption into Cocoon or something like that to set up like with a Varus and a Zoe and a Jace, there are synergies there where like you can make this into a non-Sinner pick because the Cocoon is so valuable and the burst just takes someone off the board.
Plus,
same kind of thing with like a Graves, right? Same kind of thing. The burst is there. Although I think Graves is better at that in the late game because obviously his ult is omnipresent.
At least if she's got lane control on either bot or top, can find dives and then transition that into early objectives, right? Is kind of part of the idea as well. And so that can be strong.
The other two which I've put in, so Varus and Zoe, really big.
Varus
LeBlanc, ever present in LJL.
Yeah, she's gonna get banned probably by
Ace is also just
DFM.
Ace is just really good at LeBlanc.
So is Pyrion.
Yeah, that's true. So this raises the questions on the side of DFM. Do we all hope that Syros can play Zoe and LeBlanc so they don't necessarily have to ban
I don't know.
I don't think they're that important. I don't think they're that important. They're good and
they're losing 2 ban spots, which is my big qualm with it.
The reason they're important is because
find Pound to place to them.
I think Pyrion is super good at LeBlanc and Zoe. Pyrion and then Ace is really good at LeBlanc, less so the Zoe. But I think that it's worth a consideration.
They'll take them,
right? Yeah, exactly right.
You can blind pick them. They're that good.
I think the reason that they're good is because the players are good at them, not necessarily because they're great in the meta. I think LeBlanc is good. They're both good blind picks in the mid lane, which is valuable in its own state. And again, like if we're talking about the MTG color chart, which we've been arguing so much about in terms of like a little bit of everything.
Pre-show.
LeBlanc and Zoe can kind of do a bit of everything just because they take on all comers in lane. They're good in skirmishes, good in team fight. They can side lane to an extent. They kind of have that going on for them. They can kind of do whatever the team comp kind of needs in a lot of ways. The other 2 picks which I put down, which I do, well, there's Victor, which is a big one for Ace does play it, but particularly for Pyrion. So this is more like a finals thing. And then Morgana and Thresh, absolutely huge. And then
they are.
Fucking Nautilus for good measure, right? Morgana has been NT's back pocket, just like a look. This thing is really good. Morgana is exponentially better the harder she wins lane. Yutori wins fucking lane. That is what he does. So
he's very good at that.
If you have Morgana for NT, and you just win lane with the Yutori, like, it's a really strong pick, and he's really comfortable on it. He plays it well, because it wins lane, it gets even better, and that's why we saw DFM ban it after game 1.
Yeah,
you just could not be picked.
Don't do that to yourself.
Too important. And then the Thresh is just really good for all of the different supports there. Every single support is really good at that pick.
So that raises a lot of questions. There seem to be a lot of must pick or must ban. How much flexibility are these teams going to have around these? And what kind of comps are going to be good? I mean, it's going to come down to, obviously, the day, the first pick.
And that's why I'm like, game 1, if they come in with a certain idea and they've just forgotten about some of these power picks, or they've tried to roll the dice on them, this could give you a free loss or a free win on the day.
Could be awkward. It'll make the semi-finals far more interesting, because obviously Sengoku have that info going in. They're like, oh god, what we've done for the last month is terrible. Let's just forget all that and just do what we were doing beforehand, because we won with that.
Yep.
But what do we think the score is going to be for each of these teams? First off, on the chopping block, as we do alphabetical normally, DFM versus Sengoku. What do we think the score is going to be for that matchup? Initia1ise?
All right, I will throw my hot take out. I'm going to follow the memes that have been flying around. I think it'd be 3-0 DFM.
Hey.
I'll throw it out. I'll do it. That's my hot take.
All right. I like it. Hot take. Nymaera, go.
Let's go.
3-1 Sengoku. 3-1 Sengoku.
I would go 3-2 Sengoku, but I agree Sengoku are probably winning.
I think they're just... I think that arguably say, coming in cold, all that stuff, like... Yutori is the most consistent player in the LJL. He won't be affected.
Depending on how the series go, he might just solidify MVP of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. I think that if Yutori has a good showing in the finals, he's probably my MVP. But we'll talk about that on another podcast episode.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And I think that Blank is the best preparation player, one of the best prep players of all time. And I think that he won't be phased as much. And when Blank is doing well, Sengoku do well, Pyrion works from that, and NT being in lane with Yutori just works well with that. So I think that because you've got these two linchpin people, and then of course Pyrion is the one question mark. I'm like, if he comes in really not good, that could be really
and we have also seen Blank also go on bad streaks.
But he's so good at prep in high pressure situations.
I was like, to be honest,
my question is how much has he got to prep from? Is my question.
I mean, I was expecting you both to just go, well, I mean, if DFM play against Sengoku in the finals, surely just Sengoku play through top lane and stomp Apperman. And that's where I expected you to go with that. Not expected. I think arguably Sengoku beat DFM in every other spot except for top lane.
And that's the thing, though. Without Renekton, I think that Apperman survives.
Oh yeah, because he just plays Gangplank or some garbage, and like he just plays his fucking. He plays
Aatrox versus Gnar, and like what are you gonna do with that matchup? You occasionally take a turret. I mean, you're not a hyper split pusher. You're not good enough in team fights.
We know someone like Apperman will happily play the hyper late game champions, and will just be like, all right, I'll play the Gravedigger. And I'm just going to dig your grave. It will take us 50 minutes, but I'll fucking do it, Ebby, and I'll 2v1 you at that point.
Oh, the fucking Yorick.
Oh, that was such a fun game.
To justify my spice a little bit, I actually wonder whether I think it's probably 3-0 either way, but I will give it India.
Oh, God.
Really?
Comes with the right idea.
Because I think that's it, because I think that's what it's going to be. I think it's going to be an idea thing, because we've seen it across the world, really, where teams just come in with the right idea and really taking it to town on teams.
Okay.
And I do think I will give it DFM's way, because I think they're probably a little bit more flexible in terms of which lane to pressure. And I know you guys have issues with Ceres champion pool, but I think there's enough champions in there that are viable and good enough into most things that will be fine.
I mean, if Syndra just gets banned, I just don't know what he does anymore. That's my concern. I'm just like, they ban Syndra and then they don't care about the rest of it. He just becomes a Karma player, and I'm like, that sounds great.
He plays Ornn, he plays Cassia.
I do not think they're good picks in a blind scenario.
I think Ornn's fine.
Ornn's fine, yeah, sure, he's fine.
He got stomped by Pyrion. Stomped.
I know he plays Azir. I know he plays Corki.
Yeah, let me just see what
Corky's legit. Azir's also always good. Azir's always good.
Yeah. So, we know
but Azir is
those are historic picks for him.
reliant.
So you look at the last. So basically, Sengoku ended up banning Set and Renekton in the first round.
They just target Ebby.
Like,
ban the best player, right?
I actually don't think you even need to ban Set.
I would, because we've seen him do that level 1 bullshit stuff.
I agree, but I think that you can play GP into it and you're fine. And I'm like,
sure.
I will also,
whatever.
I will also say Seros is a pretty good Nico and Diana, interestingly. So
Nico had some buffs. Diana is super risky. You can't.
I know, but it is an option.
Against Ace, who's probably going to be watching everything.
Yeah.
And against Pyrian, God, that's not working. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, Diana's alright, and it's also pretty good in stuff like Rumble and shit. But if you ever all in Diana at the wrong time and you just get killed, your game is so sad.
Because, as an ex-Diana main, I agree.
I play quite a lot of. I'm a mid laner. I have to play this shit. I one trick still, but yeah. But no, I think that maybe if Seros picks up some random shit in this meantime and brings back out the Nico, yeah, it'd be pretty fun. I don't think it's the best thing ever. But...
So there's some things like that. I mean, I know he plays a bit of Aurelia too to some success.
Well, as his recent solo queue shows, it's not been going so good. But we're only privy to the.
But he's 51% win rate.
We're only privy to, sadly, his Korean account and potentially only 2 accounts. I think we're privy to. So we'll get into that shout out a little bit later. But it's been interesting looking over some of these pro games. Where do we see this match going if V3 face against Sengoku? Where do we think the points will go? Who do we think will win? Initia1ise this time. No, who went first last time? That was Initia1ise. So yeah, Nymaera, you go first now.
3-0, probably Sengoku.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
Initia1ise?
Yeah. Okay.
You know what we do. We always know. You say the score and we talk about it after.
I'm thinking. I think it's probably 3-1 Sengoku.
Okay, I actually give it to V3 3-2.
That's fair.
3-2 though. They have to go the full 5.
This is the problem. They could prep anything that'd be super good and whatever.
Yeah, right? I know. It's so hard to. This is why it's predicting so hard.
I'm half there, and I'm like, well, arguably V3 are the best aggressive team in the league, but also Sengoku are arguably the best defensive team in the league.
Yeah, exactly.
So and we saw versus CGA, you get that kind of dichotomy, and CGA won the first 2 games. I think that Sengoku are more consistent than CGA, without some of the star power, because obviously they don't have Arya, but they have Yutori Miyashi and stuff like that. I think that Sengoku are going to come in with a really rock solid team comp, and they're just gonna be super hard to pick apart.
Rock solid.
Right. Okay. So I think so. My thing is, I think if the games are, I think if the games are standard, then Sengoku win, is my read. And I would have said that Sengoku out team fight V3 before having seen the semis, where obviously V3 tried to do their usual early snowball, didn't work out. Then they came into game 3, they were kind of getting a bit behind, and then team fought their way back into a lead from behind, which I had not seen them do.
I mean, I think Sengoku banned Rek'Sai. I think you stop that, you nip that before it can even become a thing. You just go
ban Rek'Sai, take a Lee Sin. You can do. But you can also play. Blank plays Lee Sin too. He's a great Lee Sin player. So
I think you just ban the Rek'Sai.
He's had some bad games on that champion, but yes, he is a good Lee Sin player.
He's a good Rek'Sai player too. So there is.
I think that if both these guys pick up Graves and we can
we're just gonna see Graves being fought over.
But then Graves is like new Olaf in a lot of ways. He just
But he scales better. He doesn't fall off. He doesn't fall off.
So the question now comes to both of you. I'll go to Initia1ise first. Because I love doing these questions, because both of you squeam and squirmish and don't want to be the first one to pull the trigger.
Not today.
Who is going to be the overall winner? All 3 teams are up for contention. Initia1ise, go. Rip it off. DFM, yeah, of course you do. Nymaera?
Sengoku, and it won't be close.
Well, we've got 3 different teams for 3 different of our hosts.
Are you going to be 3?
Oh yeah, I'm a boogeyman.
Man alive.
Okay.
All right. What's the bet? No. What are we betting on this?
All right.
No. What's the punishment?
We can't talk about official betting on the podcast. We'll talk off the podcast, but we're 100% putting something on this.
What's the wager? The forfeit.
The wager. So it's a forfeit more than necessarily money.
Because I'm a money person. Okay. I got called a fucking alien because I wanted to talk about money. I can't believe that. It's on brand for me.
Oh god.
So, we were playing Jackbox the other day for my birthday. Lexi got put under suspicion for his monetary value.
Talking about money, and I'm like, what do you mean? I'm Mr. Krabs. I like money.
Were you an alien, Lexi?
I was an alien. But that's besides the point. That's beside the point. It was on brand for me regardless, because the question was like, someone's hurt or something like that.
You fed a vegan meat. I think
Oh, yeah. It was like, fed a vegan meat. What am I going to do? Apologize or give them money? Well, I'm just apologizing while giving them money. And apparently I'm the bad guy for that. Disagree fully. As a man who has a girlfriend who is vegetarian, or quite was, I never fed her meat though, by the way, so I never had to bribe her with money.
Move on.
Money.
Okay.
So
defending himself. It's like,
so
what's the forfeit?
I genuinely do believe V3 will win. This isn't me hoping on hope. Yeah. This isn't me going hoping of hope. This is genuinely me thinking analytically. I think V3 are the team that will get there. Forfeit wise,
Wear clown makeup podcast for a podcast of choosing.
So does that the losers? So two of us.
Losers are in clown.
So two
makeup.
of us are in clown.
Yes.
One of us isn't.
Can we do like fake dye for the appropriate color for just like a streak in the hair for like you got
for the one that's meant to have it been. If it was red, it has to be a red streak. If it's green, it has to be a green streak. If it's blue, it has to be a blue streak.
So Sengoku will be red, DFM is blue, V3 is green.
Until the start of the next split, you must introduce the winner as Lord.
Yeah.
Someone.
Yeah.
I prefer that one because that makes my life easier. Because then I can just be like Lord Lexi. Oh, it's just great.
It's like
I finally have a title. Someone introduces me.
I mean, you do in fairness have the most Lord-like name. Lord Alexander William Swan is about as like remarkably.
Imperator Alexander Talfan Hapgood.
Oh man.
Wow, that's
a
mouthful. All right, fair enough.
His Highness Samuel Fitchian Hapgood, first of his name.
Yeah, we're Welshies.
God, and I'm
so the forfeit would be Lord. Do we want to do clown makeup?
I'm happy to do I'm happy to do like King of the Ring WWE style, like King of everyone. You also get the King tag. Okay, so you become the king of the Discord server as well. Like,
we have a king thing, and also we get to choose our own title to be.
I like
our
that.
own method of introduction.
Yes.
And do we want to do that? Do that until the next split
starts?
Yeah,
do that till summer split starts.
Because we'll have a while.
I mean, do we want to throw? I mean, like this. I haven't at all discussed this with the guys, but do we want to throw potential punishments out to the community?
No.
Too risky.
That's very risky.
What I would be more up for doing,
I tried.
If the three of us would be more about it, we didn't want to put money on the line, but I would be up for buying the person that gets it right a jersey of their team and going halves with the other person that lost.
I can do that. Yeah, I do.
I'd be up for buying like either I get a V3 jersey, Initia1ise gets a DFM, or Nymaera gets a Sengoku.
That works for me. Yeah, sure.
I think that's a cool way to.
At least something of a similar
yeah,
idea.
or we can try and get like the cards or something.
Some kind of memorabilia for it.
Yeah. It might take
some of those. Some of those jerseys can get like quite expensive, especially with shipping.
Yes.
So like if it's like it is now 200 quid to get you this jersey, it's like I love you.
Yes, with shipping as well coming from Japan.
Red bubble we go.
But mid quarantine, this is not going to be a good idea for me.
Okay, we've said who we think, and the important one is with my bullet points. This is why I asked you to pay attention. Who do we think will win? I genuinely think V3 will win.
Yeah,
I think we're all fine though. I think all three of us actually have legitimate reasons why each of our teams could win. Who do we want to win is a different one, because I want DFM to actually pull it back for me.
The difficult thing for me is that we don't have MSI anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm like, so this, because that would be in tandem with who do we want to represent the region. Okay. Now it's not that, so now it's
Oh yeah, that's why I want DFM to win, because
So I think for me, theoretically, like for the narrative, DFM. Theoretically, who would I want at MSI? That if an MSI was going on, I'd want V3. I think.
I agree.
I think Boogie. I think their play style is one that could catch a lot of teams.
Sorry,
things I don't want on camera.
I had to be a little bit happy about that one. That was
the explicit services.
I mean, I'm a man, a myth, and a legend. I do many services apparently.
$2.95 a minute for
I mean,
for
she's
Nymaera,
a model. You know.
Yeah. Okay. All right, moving on. But I just think V3's playstyle has. I mean, it's right. It's gonna go. Some of them will. Some they'll win. Some they'll lose because there'll be teams that know how to counter it. But I also think we can catch a lot of teams off guard.
I also think Sengoku.
I think that would be our best bet.
DFM rely on winning certain lanes very hard to like fully enact their style, whereas like V3 just roll up to a team fight like, "Hey, what up, losers? We're getting in and team fighting."
Well, Boogie's already in there.
And the thing, and it's also things like.
And he's echoed back out, and he's coming back in.
Yeah. We've also seen
I travelled back 200 years of experience.
And and we know Ebby stands up well on international competition.
He does.
Final.
But
we have also seen Ceres pull out the Heimerdinger versus Jensen, and Jensen goes, "Lol, slap you."
With a non-counter pick as well.
Yeah, and and that sometimes that's the way it is, right? You that's just stepping. And that's and that's also would be my issue potentially with Sengoku Gaming is they often win by playing effectively clean around objectives, right? And having a great AD carry. That might not be, that's probably not going to be enough against other top teams.
Yeah,
frankly. I mean, because a lot of other top teams will be able to compete.
You know what? Effectively, what we're saying is, if we want a team to do well internationally, we're going to have to do it a la VCS style and just be like, do the coin flip aggression to say like, look, Gigabyte Marines did really well that one time. And even then, we think actually they never got out of groups. Did VCS? No. They're doing well, and they have themselves 2 slots at Worlds.
LCL did.
LCL did in some ways too. Yeah, they did, right? And so the question is what's going to give us the higher chance, and what's the real inroad to making it deep into a tournament? Because LJL has been
Remember though, Team Flash is making it to MSI if it was happening for VCS, and that was a great series. If you're interested in watching us, go and watch.
Oh man,
go and watch that series because there was that pause at the very end when it looked like Flash had won. It was like, just unpause it. You're not. I know what you're doing, Gam. People have done that shit to me in Magic the Gathering tournaments where they're like, "Judge, no, it's broken." I'm like, "Motherfuckers, unpause this. You've lost. Just let the game end." And then we had to wait 30 minutes. It was so annoying.
Yeah, no.
But it was a great series. I loved it.
Shout out to VCS English. They're really cool guys.
Great job.
They cast it in English, much like we do with the LJL, but they've been at it for a longer time than we have, and they've really made their dent in the industry. So that's been really fun. The series is also really good. But basically what we're saying is that, there's going to be a topic at some point where we're like, okay, these teams, which regions do we think they'd fit into best? And V3, I'd argue, it's going to be VCS in a lot of ways, and that's partly because of Boogie, in a lot of ways because of Boogie. So I think that, they might be able to emulate some of the VCS success.
I also could see somewhat they could Unicorns of Love series, the LCL series reminded me a lot of V3 as well.
It did. Gambit went out, and I'm really sad.
They were not playing where they used to be, sadly.
Remember last year they were a game away from making it into. Remember they went 3-2 versus C9.
I do. I remember.
He members. But that was a...
For 2 years straight, Edward's team has gone 3-2 versus C9.
It's just kind of insane.
Yeah, it's huge.
Oh no,
was it Clutch? It was Clutch this time, was it? Oh, shit, I'm trying to remember.
I can't remember.
Whatever, I can't remember. But they went 3-2 in play-in stage.
So, we're all saying... So, I'm saying DFM purely because I just want them to keep having this dynasty. I'd like them to actually have the dynasty. I think it would be nice. I don't think they're going to win, remember. I don't think it's going to keep going.
Isn't DFM to win, to make sure that we're not a one-team region. Say, look, prove it. We're not a one-team region when it comes to the finals.
I would like to be proved wrong. That's why I'm saying I think V3 will actually win. But I'd like it to be DFM because why not have the dynasty keep going until we hit summer? And then somebody else can go to Worlds, and that's where I'm like, yes, you thought we were a one-team thing. We actually had a secret attack this whole time.
It sucks that we don't get multiple teams at Worlds, but LJL hasn't had the results internationally, so we can't say that, right?
Oh, God, no.
So it'd be really interesting to see how they evolve over summer. These teams.
I agree.
This goes off into content that I would love to go into. I think they need to bring back a better wildcard system. I also think with you're letting more EU teams and LPL teams, which I think is totally valid. You're not gonna find an argument. I would like it to be more ways of maybe finding more avenues for international teams to participate on a minor
on an international league.
And an international league to try to play in. I don't know how the devil you do it. I know there is the play-in stage for Worlds. Obviously, I'm well aware of that. But a way of actually qualifying for that. Like, it would be cool if the second place for the LJL qualifies, or the third place as well qualifies for a tournament.
International Wildcard Invitational, like they did way back when. But that effectively was the play-in stage, right?
But I want pre-play-ins, because obviously play-in.
Yeah, no, I'd love that too. It's like for like Face It League stuff like that.
Yes.
CS:GO, they have like an online qualifier, shit like
that.
That
Exactly.
means you actually get. And for me, that's what's holding back. This is getting really meta. That's what holds back like second tier and extra random stuff.
And challenger teams.
Exactly, and that's why EU has this great EU Masters.
EU Masters is so good for that.
We're so lucky.
Yeah, and it's kind of a shame that we don't have like a lot of the Korean teams having like their secondary team. They have Casper Cup, that helps too,
That's
right?
their best bet.
Like season 4, Korea had such a diverse series of competition. They had like NLB, which was basically each organization sending both their teams as a joint team. And they'd have like best of series when one team would play and the other team would play, and they'd have like this team tournament thing. It was really fucking good. Go back and watch season 4.
Masters stuff.
So good. So MLB Masters, I think it was.
And I do think that is something that I really hope Riot Games and any and all of their partners. I think if they are considering what we've all been hearing through the grapevine, that spring splits are going to be getting taken away because of their relevancy is. Well, it's not there. It's not what it used to be. We're not the same game anymore. We're not the same tournament series. It would be really cool if they start doing more international stuff. I mean, obviously, post-COVID, and granted, all of that might be completely different, because guess what? People are going to work differently after all of this. So
probably. Yeah.
Who truly knows? I mean, God bless Mother Earth, and she's breathing.
Got removed, so that's kind of counter to that. But I'd like there to be some kind of valid replacement. It's just what form they think is going to be the most efficient in terms of money and viewership.
I mean, to be honest, I would be totally okay if LJL only ever get to play internationally. It's only against other Asia and obviously Oceania.
I'd be okay with that.
I'd be okay with just Asia and Oceania.
Get us outside the region for a bit.
Yeah, can we get DFM V3 Sengoku to a point Crest playing against some of the LPL teams, some of the LCK teams, some of the VCS teams, some of the OPL teams. Like,
I mean, that's what Rift Rivals did, right? It just wasn't particularly successful as a format, because it happened mid-spring split. It was, it was rather flash in the pan. It wasn't the best thing ever.
And with more time and everything else, I don't think it has to be a thing that shadows Worlds. No. By the way, but I think if you have time for this, it might be I don't know. I've definitely got problems with how
open circuit spring split would be really fun. That's what I think.
But then you get in the whole problem with like the reason I don't want it to
organize it. The thing.
Well, I just don't want the whole thing that Overwatch League has, which is a whole nother thing where you have 14 teams trying to fly internationally around the whole globe so that their teams can play a week-on-week game series.
Yeah, but CS:GO does it really well.
Yeah, but they keep it to regions outside of majors, which is
exactly.
but that's a completely different tournament series. It's what Valorant is actually going to be emulating. And
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
I could see. Okay, I'm going off into a completely different tangent. I don't need to do this, but
before we keep going as well, quick correction. Like just to, I know we were saying, I know I said earlier we didn't think Ebby played Ornn. I just realised he's actually got a 70+% win rate in solo queue on that. So I'm taking it doesn't play. He actually plays a lot of it apparently.
No, but Sam, is it the question of he plays it in solo queue and he's proficient at it, or is it good for his team?
Yeah, I'm assuming you're going to assume it has to be.
No, but for me,
I just wanted to offer that correction because we had.
Ebby needs to be a pressure valve for this team to work.
Yeah, potentially true.
That's why I if he doesn't have the Renekton, what can he crush lane on?
I mean, we have seen Ornn do well in lanes as well, to be fair.
No, but it's not going to be like the person that completely I mean, I would like him to pick up Silas top, maybe something like that.
Yeah.
Or Fiora, or something like that, right? Something that just absolutely shits on top if you're good enough at it and you get the right matchup.
Either way, I wanted to say I know I said I didn't think he played it, Ornn, and I was like, well, I'm just very wrong. So there you go. Anyway, continue.
I mean, I was trying to figure out a way to end my
there you go.
My tangent, because I mean I was going far too far down a rabbit hole and I was catching myself, and that's concerning if I'm catching myself, where the kind of rabbit hole I'm letting us go down. This is the part of the podcast, dear listener, where we would normally go on to meta talk, but we've already been talking about the meta for the last 2+ hours, so I think I'll relieve you all, and because we have talked so much about 10.5 5. I am going to be so looking forward to never looking at this patch again.
I've been casting on every other patch.
Yeah,
for like ever since that patch, I've been casting on every other patch because I've been casting like UK University stuff and casting some like random amateur shit. Like I've had to drill that onto my head. Like this is so weird casting back into a different patch.
Oh, random amateur
so
shit.
Weird, man.
Love it. But with that all said, we're gonna go over to a little bit of small talk. A little bit of small talk. A little bit of small talk. I put a few questions up there. For us to briefly go over. We don't have to go particularly in depth. This was just kind of me on the top of my head. We will be going into question time in a few moments. This is just a few moments. I just wanted to kind of stop stressing out so much about the LJL and kind of say, hey guys, I talk to you almost every day anyway. But hey guys, let our listeners have a little bit of a privy to our conversations we have off cast. We're not going to talk about the magic color pie in League of Legends. I think that's something we have to do prep for, really. But what are the plans for us individuals once we hit the end of the LJL split? I mean, we're going to come back for summer, obviously.
Yep.
And the plan, I believe, is to obviously, it's only going to be a month to 2 months, depending on when the official date does come. We're assuming it's going to be mid-June, but that's as best as we know, because COVID makes things complicated. What are we going to be each doing after we finish this split? Bit of time to just kind of mull out.
Well, so I'm a student in university. So for those that don't really know my story and stuff, I went to uni. I am now at uni again. So I went to uni in Sheffield, and now I'm down in London. So I'll have bits and pieces to do with that. I'm actually currently doing a project, which is effectively making a game with some other game students. That's kind of fun, cool. It's gonna be doing that. Waiting till lockdown ends in a lot of ways. Just having to keep safe, do all that kind of thing, look after myself. That's one thing. Just do some personal improvements to myself, really make sure I'm healthy in all aspects of life. Got some other stuff I'll be casting for. I'm looking for other opportunities. If you guys do want an extra caster or something, drop me a line. DMs are open. Yep. I'm sure that applies to these two as well.
Indeed. Very much open for that.
And I'm particularly looking for any kind of paid work, but that's always the cherry on top, really, because you know at this point you got to start valuing yourself, and it's good for the industry to value yourself and not undercut other people that could have the opportunity for money and shit. So there's that. And then trying to keep myself socially not completely isolated and awful. It's kind of me, really.
Cool.
Playing video games as well.
Initialize?
Yeah, I think obviously it's a bit of a weird time in terms of obviously stuff with COVID. So I think what I'll be doing is I'll be doing some music-y stuff. So I've got some composition stuff I'm getting on with some various projects on that. Some actual game design stuff as well. So I'll be doing some crafts for that. I'll be casting as much as I can. A couple other leagues I'm involved with. Similarly, looking for anything that'll pay a little bit of dollar would be nice. I think getting into that space is definitely good, and definitely looking for all the opportunities there. So between kind of music and game design and casting, I should be fairly busy, which I'm kind of looking forward to. Or trying to keep myself busy during these times.
Oh, D&D.
That's video game playing. Yeah, D&D.
D&D.
A good option.
D&D. For myself, once we finish this, it will be kind of crazy to say that I have produced a full spring split. And
the amount of broadcast hours is fucking
it's insane. I will be working on creating my casting reel, so the few games I did cast for the LJL, as well as my own personal cast that I've done on the side. For more, I haven't cast a huge amount of League of Legends, even though I've been around and I talk about the game so much. I haven't actually casted a huge amount, though I actually have been working with Initia1ise and Nymaera on the same amateur league, so we've been able to do that. Actually, that's 2 different leagues we actually have worked together all together. Weird, crazy. So I've been doing a little bit of league casting. I still need to definitely keep brushing up and getting better. It's not quite the same as my Magic the Gathering casting, which
it's a very different beast.
And that's my background, listener. My background is card games, strategy, Hearthstone, Magic the Gathering, teamfight tactics. I want to be able to pause a moment in a game, look at everything that's happening, and go, what's the perfect line? And I love doing that routinely because that's how my brain likes working. This is why I like counting to 20 and figuring out, or counting to 10 to figure out if my opponent's dead in Magic. 10 if it's infect, 20 if it's actual damage. I played Affinity and I became a master of that archetype back in the day. Nice. I even changed how the deck was played and configured because of my impact to the community. I told us to stop playing one land and we had to play a different land. and that became the community thing.
Cool.
But
I've done nothing of the sort.
But now the deck's dead because it's garbage and it got banned, and now I'm sad. So I can't play my pet deck. But then basically I kind of stopped playing Magic to a semi-professional level once that happened, because that was the last nail in the coffin, which happened actually only a few months ago. But I have been casting Magic and other things. What I'll be working on is I finally gotten myself, as I was talking ages ago to these gentlemen, I finally got myself into the hard drive. I'm getting the abilities to install it into my computer. I'll be reinstalling Windows, and hopefully come probably next probably after all of our casting, LJL and everything else said, and after episode 14 has been recorded, uploaded, quadruple checked, it's all up there, I will then be copying everything across, and hopefully a streaming schedule will be consistent, because that's been something I've talked to these two about.
Our internet is not allowed for streaming.
No, and my computer's been having problems, which has been preventing me from doing streaming. It's the whole reason I've had to buy this hard drive. I mean, I've maybe fixed my external hard drive, but that's still not done, and my classmate is definitely not paying me, as he's now back in China, so that's definitely gone.
Oh dear.
And I will never probably communicate with them again, so
slight salt,
slight salt, but it's more the response he got when I was like, you broke it. He's like, so I was like, okay, that's where I'm getting with that. And then COVID hit, so and outside of that, I'm just looking to try and do as much casting and streaming as possible. Fully commit to the content producer life until
we'll keep that updated on each of our Twitters and stuff like that.
Trying to just live and breathe. Obviously, I'll still be doing the LJL podcast every Tuesday. I'm excited. We've got a few things planned, and we will definitely also have hopefully exciting content coming this way.
Yeah, hopefully.
I think I've covered everything about myself, and you two gentlemen have covered yourselves. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or are you more than happy to go on to question time?
Happy birthday, Sam, for yesterday.
Yeah, oh yes, happy belated birthday for the umpteenth time. It's now 2 days ago. It's no, you don't even get that from me. You get that from your brother. You can have that from your brother.
Mine's in June, by the way. Mine's in June.
We've got a while to go.
End of June, yeah.
Sadly. We'll be in the middle of summer by then, so I mean, hopefully.
A couple of weeks in.
Oh yeah. Our first question is actually a episode 12 question. I just got to we recorded earlier than I should have. I forgot. I got better this week. I got better. I will always ask for questions on the Monday before we record on the Tuesday, because our recording schedule is normally almost Wednesday morning, so whatever. God, I hate trying to do some people's names. Glowworth, otherwise known as Emma on Discord, wanted to ask us the question: what are some of the biggest moments at international events, both good or bad, as an LJL fan, gentlemen?
So the biggest and I think the best and worst event in LJL recent international history happened on exactly the same day, actually.
Yeah, we did.
Wow.
2019 season 9 World Championship playing day 3. And what happened there was you start off the day with one of the groups playing, but also a group with Detonation Focus Meets, Splice, and Initia1ise Gaming. Coming into this, I believe that Detonation Focus Me were 0-2, I think they'd lost a game to Splice and to Initia1ise, I think, on day 1 of the competition. Yeah, that was the case. Day 3, they open up against Splice knowing that they have to go 2-0 to even up the groups, get tiebreak to get out. They win versus Splice. This is the same Splice that would go on in the group stages to take a game off of FPX. Vizichachi is in the form of his life. He's doing fantastic things. Xerxes, very strong player. Humanoid came out at ULCS as one of the best mid laners too. And DFM beat Splice. And that was huge. They take a game off a major region team, and they're doing great. So they go in knowing that if they beat Initia1ise, this Latin America team, that they could get through into the knockout stages of the playing stages. And it is a 63-minute game. We have Seros on his Ziggs, Yutapon on his Ezreal, Ebby on his Gnar. they lose in 63 minutes and 25 seconds, and they're knocked out of play-ins. Huge.
Massively true.
It sucked so bad.
I mean,
That's it, man.
Oh, so sad.
I mean, that's kind of just been the story that we've kind of been saying for the LJL. What needs to change, really, right?
Yeah.
Because as frustrating as it is, okay, they beat Spliced. They went 1-1 against Spliced, but if they're not able to beat Icarus, who I think were second.
Icarus finished second in that group, yeah, because
in their region, right?
In their region, no, they finished first.
They finished first in their region.
Yeah, the only team that gets the only teams that get like regions which get multiple teams are the major regions and then also VCS.
Right. Okay.
Well, it used to be LMS, but now that's been a bit changed. VCS has kind of replaced them as that.
Sure, that makes sense. I wasn't 100% sure. Okay, so but we were losing to the first seed of Latin America.
Yeah.
Which is a region that is getting stronger and stronger by the split. They are definitely becoming a team where they were able to. I don't believe their performance was great going into groups.
Yeah. Wait, sorry, who?
Icarus.
Icarus didn't get out of groups. This is only the top person which got out of groups in this format.
Oh, was it only?
Or rather, no. So you go into a playoffs, like first and second go off, and then I haven't looked.
Yeah, they lost to Hong Kong Attitude, and then Spliced went through.
Yeah. So DFM finished 1-3, Icarus 2-2, Spliced 3-1.
Yeah, because you play against the second seed plays against the first seed of another group, and that's how that works. And then the winner of that gets actually into a group, right?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Yes, exactly. There were some really fun games in those play-ins actually, because you had Loki taking game off of Damwon, so good, and Splice vs UOL went 3-2, another LCL team going.
So my whole thing for that thing, why I'm really sad about it, is DFM lost to Icarus. Icarus lost pretty handedly to Hong Kong Attitude.
Yeah.
Hong Kong Attitude then ended up being in arguably the worst group of Griffin, G2, and Cloud9, and then going 0-6.
Yeah.
Do we think our boys do better
than Hong Kong Attitude in that group?
Probably not, right? Because that's
the
worst group in the world to ever be against, right?
Oh, no. Remember that Group C is arguably the strongest group in world's history.
Yeah, it was awful.
True.
No, in any other competition,
less clutch.
Any other competition, yeah.
T1 Fnatic RNG.
But you look at the third.
This was like the first year that Uzi didn't make playoffs, right?
Yeah, it was
for like years.
I remember watching that.
Oh no, there was the year he was on. OMG, which wasn't great, but
Oh yeah.
And they didn't even qualify. But
That was not great.
That was not good.
Pre-RNG days.
But then he's still not made it out of. He didn't make it into groups.
No, he's
to
never
make it
failed
out
to make it out of groups if he's been there. Yeah.
So I mean it's the weird one where you have to count SKT as technically winning 3 times in a row. They just missed a year of Worlds.
Yeah. They won 3, missed 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
Can this old LJL fan offer another match that was probably quite entertaining internationally?
Oh yeah.
So this is not an all-important match. This is not this fantastic win over Splice in kind of fantastic fashion. This is a game during Rift Rivals 2018 between Southeast Asia, LJL, and OPL.
Okay.
Where this is where like DFM were the only team from the LJL looking mildly good.
Yeah.
And they played against Ascension on the last day, and they ran this team composition: Kennen in the top lane for Ebby. It was Steel on Kai'Sa, AP Kai'Sa jungle, or hybrid Kai'Sa jungle.
Okay.
Seros was on
Ari?
Karma.
Oh. I thought Ari to full tilt Nymaera.
But then the bot lane for Utapon and Vivid, who was of course the support at the time, was Nunu and Morgana. They won. They crushed it.
Is that just a display of dominance or complete confusion?
Let me copy this match history for you guys, just so you can understand this.
Jesus.
But it was a wonderful game. I could like that.
Horrifying.
So like, if you want a great game for the LJL, go watch that game versus Splice. It's really good fun. This is just like This is DFM being. Yeah, they were out at this point. They decided to have fun and then
win.
Yeah, they did with Nunu Morgana bot lane.
I mean, at that point, why
and Kai'Sa jungle.
not?
I've played against Kai'Sa jungle a couple of times.
It's
kind of bullshit, actually.
Someone like because you basically the moment you hit level 6, you killer instinct into lane. It's like, and now I'm here.
And also, yeah. It's also warrior is a very just your jungle jungle items are very impactful.
He did. He went Blood Razor is what he went.
Yeah. I think maybe the other moment was probably actually both from last year because there was MSI play-ins as well.
Yeah.
Where DFM were once again one game away from making it through.
So close.
They finished 4-2, second in the group to Vega Squadron, who were the LCL team.
Yeah.
And they went 0-2 versus them, but they 2-0'd the other two groups, which included INTZ and Mega from Southeast Asia and Brazil. And they just need to take one game off Vega, and they couldn't manage it.
So sad.
Again, admittedly, the LJL's not had great results in pretty much any international tournament, but there have been a couple of times where...
I mean, this is why we've always been calling for a new team to try and make an international event, because we've seen what these players currently have done at international. It's good, but it's not making it to the next step.
I think back to last year and the teams that... So the top 3 teams would have been from summer, right? Would have been DFM, V3 and CGA. And I compared DFM to this current DFM, and I'm like, okay, so same DFM, same kind of level. We expect excellence from them. Arguably, they've gotten better because of their coaching staff and all those other things. I look at the 2 and 3 teams, so for now it'd be like a mixture of Sengoku, V3, maybe chuck CGA in there on a good day or whatever, right? And I'm like, they are so much better than last year. If we had multiple teams going through to these international events, LGL, another Rift Rivals, LGL would be actually pretty stacked.
Yeah. I mean, I will also say...
But is that during... Is that... interesting. Sorry, Initialize. Is that versus other emerging regions, or is that versus the 4th and 3rd team of Europe and NA?
I mean, listen here, young LJL whippersnappers. Go back to 2017 Rift Rivals, the first one, I believe, and LJL won. They won that Rift Rivals versus Oceania and Southeast Asia. They beat Gigabyte Marines. They beat Ascension. They beat Direwolves. DFM Untold Stuff Gaming Rampage went 5-1 in that overall. And then effectively, and they won that series. They won the Rift Rivals. So
feels bad because we have to mention Rampage. Feels bad.
I know. So DFM USG Rampage, they beat GAM back when they were really good. When they went into Worlds that year. I remember, and did silly things. But yeah, there you go. So LGL has been able to perform on an international stage.
But
it's been a while, and it's again emerging. So we've seen some stuff.
I mean,
it's been a while.
It's versus other regions which we would like to see them play more against, of OCE and obviously. God, what is C? What that doesn't exist anymore.
Southeast Asia.
Okay, so that's just VCS now, right? The Southeast Asia doesn't exist anymore because now
VCS is there's PCS, which is PCS, which includes all the ex-LMS teams as well.
Right. Okay.
There's remember how
can't make this stuff simple.
Remember how Taipei Assassins technically came from?
They were a complete wild card.
Version of it. No, but they came from that region. That's
right. Yes.
Because that I'm trying to remember what it was. Effectively, it was so you had
because they didn't even have a league to play in. They just won through just a bunch of tournaments. Did they?
No, they did. Yeah, because or rather, it went on to be that in season 2 because season 2 was weird, right? Remember?
Yeah, season 2 was just a mess.
It was very odd.
Because you had Singapore, Southeast Asia, and a couple of the Indonesian stuff as well. They would have their and Thailand as well. I think it was. They'd have their regional tournaments, and then the winners of that would basically have a Champions League where they go into a bigger thing, and that was the tournament which kind of. So PSS
I believe that was in Singapore. They did that tournament
something like that. Yeah, and I think Hong Kong was involved in that too. But I remember that you had the Taipei Assassins, the Singapore Sentinels or whatever it was as well. A whole load of teams which had some stories to them, kind of came from there.
But
and the PCS is kind of like that new kind of system.
I'm so confused because Southeast Asia has GAM. So,
technically
It
doesn't.
used
VCS...
to.
Oh, used to, yeah.
It used to.
Used to.
The
It's
VCS.
changed.
Oh, yeah. So basically, the VCS split off
Split off from
because they were,
CSH.
they
Because they were just that much better.
Yeah,
pretty much. That's exactly it.
I mean,
Yeah.
we're gonna definitely support our brethren when we're like, well,
Sorry,
they're just the best.
I was hunting down some other match history. So yeah, so they basically, there you go. If you want to see the LJL winning, 2017 Rift Rivals, we look pretty good.
Ooh.
There was a fun game in 2018 as well. 2019 was not good.
I mean,
2017, they also Rampage went 0-4 in groups. In play-ins, so
I think I'm safe to say though, we're disappointed to that, but we are very understanding, obviously, that there is no MSI.
Oh yeah, sure. No, there's no way you can hold that tournament.
But we're
so
obviously
don't worry
still
about
a little bit disappointed because this would have definitely been an MSI. We would have been waiting on bated breath, and also could have given our expertise to those that would be willing to listen to us regarding the region, as we are still the undisputed kings of the English-speaking realm when it comes to the LJL.
20 ですね。
Our other question that got given to us as a swift divergence is from Ishiki. I'm going to give a shout out to this gentleman a little bit later in regards to something completely different that they've done for our lovely community. Their question to us is, what champions do we want to see played in the semi-finals and the finals? We did sort of cover this a little bit in the episode.
We talked about Pixel Bands to fucking death, but
what champions do we want to see that we might not be seeing? I'm gonna kind of really lean into that. What champions do we want?
All right.
Or we wanna? What do we
Graves, Vel'Koz.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I'd like to see Graves. I would love to see Ebby pick up Aurelia. I think that'd be a hell of a lot of fun.
I think that's dangerous.
It would be, but it was a hell of a lot of fun.
I mean, it leans into the fact of what he has to do, right?
Yeah. It's what I want. It's not necessarily what it's not like. Again, this is a question about what we want to see, and what I want to see is not what I necessarily think is good. I think Aurelia would be a hell of a lot.
I appreciate that initialize. I appreciate.
The only time you're gonna have that is a blind pick Gangplank. It's the only time, or maybe a Jace. But
always an option.
House plays Jace. Yeah, maybe. There is an outside chance. I will not say it's impossible. Yeah, I think Graves, Vel'Koz, maybe something like Xerath would be fun, because like they're pretty okay versus stuff like Victor and Ziggs and like backliney stuff. Which if you play some shit like heavy CC jungle or whatever, and Graves doesn't count into the count of that. But if you have some heavy CC and you have like the Chains of Corruption go down or something, and just like nuke them from literally the other side of the screen with like your life form disintegration ray and your plasma stuff, and it's like, oh, they are no longer existing. There's some fun stuff you can do with that. I mean, I'm gonna say not Ari. You don't deserve her. You're not good enough.
Oof. That's
dark.
Ramone has thrown me off that.
I mean, I honestly want to just see more Azir, to be honest.
And that's why these picks do super well into it.
I actually also really want to see, and I know Boogie loves this champion and plays it quite a lot. I want to see Boogie pick up Evelynn. I think
that's your champion. That is your champion.
But he plays Evelynn really well. He's a fantastic Evelynn player.
Can I go on the opposite end and say that I hope he doesn't play the champion, because he's already playing one of your favorites in Evelynn. No, Elise rather. So come on, you're already getting one of your babes.
I mean, come on. What I will say is actually, talking to people like Maxlaw when they've been streaming a little bit, basically said, and obviously this is way back during 10.5, so it still holds some relevance. Is that effectively Evelynn was mildly viable into the right picks, especially if people are going towards tankier things that can't threaten her as well. So if people pick up a Sejuani or a Trundle, you have got options there. So it's not entirely unnecessary, and like considering that Boogie's been willing to go towards things like the Nidalee and the Echo, it would be a little different, but not so different for me to go, yeah, that's a carry jungler that maybe doesn't dive as early as he might like, but it's a carry jungler I could see him going for it still.
I'm just trying to think of
it's out there.
Which
it's
works
out
for
there.
Evelynn.
I'd also really like Xin Zhao.
Yeah, that's more reasonable.
Good. I think that Xin Zhao, like, if the enemy team's like, oh man, I really don't want to play against early game junglers and shit. Wow, that would really destroy our scaling stuff. Like, I mean, Boogie plays with me and Xin Zhao.
I mean, I really just want to see some of the champions that we've been shown that throughout as the meta has evolved, that have become strong, like this Graves that we keep harping on about, like a Corki as well.
Oh, a Corki might be.
I would like to see some of these champions that have become very important within the meta, which have not seen a huge amount of change, or as Initia1ise was privy to us earlier, Graves got his buff and no one played him for 3 patches, and then we started seeing him.
Phase Rush Graves, it's really annoying.
3 patches, 2 patches, 3. One of the 2.
You can't run away from Phase Rush Graves.
It's actually 4 patches now. 10.9 comes out.
No, but tomorrow. Till we actually saw someone playing him at a professional level. I can't remember if it was 2 patches or 3.
This last patch, really.
Okay. Which had no effect on him. People just decided, fuck it, we're going to start playing him. And I mean, it's really good. Like, it freaking stomped me in solo queue as a Syndra in mid lane, and I died like 9 times. But we won the game because we had late game scaling, and they didn't end because solo queue in silver elo is stupid, and you can genuinely win anything.
If it helps, I've been trying to pick up Syndra because I've been playing some some amateur stuff. Yeah, well, it's really vulnerable in a lot of ways. Like, you just get shut down super easy. I have a lot of respect for people that play Syndra in Pro, but I guess there's less blood in a lot of pro games, so...
But there's sometimes more blood if you're VCS and LPL, so I mean...
Yes, very true.
And these are still regions which play these champions.
Unless it's the finals unless it's like that semi-final between like FPX and JDD, where it's like first blood at 32 minutes or something.
It was bizarre. It was
very bizarre. But or you can have the complete opposite of the finals, and you decide to pick AP Syndra. No, AP Shyvana.
AP Shyvana in VCS.
Gam don't give a fuck.
Well, it was a meta pick in VCS for most of the split. It's really fun. They basically play.
I still am flabbergasted that that's legit meta.
They basically play AP Shyvana when Karthus could be picked effectively, because like you're actually a Karthus with
crazy dude,
some extra upfront burst potential, a little bit more survivability, and just safety really, but less of the Karthus fuckery. But similar Shyvana fuckery.
It's just crazy that Levi can get away with doing that kind of stuff. It genuinely boggles my mind that.
Well, it's like it's like a Boogie getting away with Echo all the time and shit, right?
Fair point. You know what?
In some ways.
Fair point.
Sometimes you're just good.
Yeah, and I mean, this is the same Levi that has gone to play for 100 Thieves.
Yeah,
and then went to play for JD, and now is playing in GAM again. So like. Yeah.
He's back, baby.
He's back, and he's definitely made a point. And the kid's only 22 years old, so he's got a long career ahead of him.
He does.
But
any other champions people want to say? I think that's pretty much it.
No, I think we've exhausted that one without starting to list every champion underneath the sun that isn't played.
That's fair.
I think short and sweet is normally the correct way. I do want to shout...
Not our podcast, then.
No, definitely not. I do want to shout out Ishiki. He gave us an amazing resource over on our Discord server where he had found... basically most players' accounts that are Korean accounts, which is what we were able to figure out quick enough. We haven't been able to fully go through the resource. The resource will be made as a default thing somewhere on our server. I will definitely be putting all of this information.
Put in a pin post or something.
Yeah, it'll be pinned, but we'll also probably give it its own little place which we can add more links to NOP.gg, so
solo queue hunting.
It can build out, and eventually we can just have every player's solo queue account, and they'll be like, we don't want it there. We'll be like, because I mean, we don't quite know on the Japanese servers many players' accounts. It's very difficult to find active accounts as well, and everything else like that. But it was very nice of them to find all that information and to give it to our community.
We appreciate you.
You are the best. Thank you, Chichiki.
Yes. Thank you. Also, writes amazing articles on a regular basis, so it's very interesting if you like your written content as well. But with that all said, gentlemen, I am looking to wrap up this podcast just sub of 3 hours. I don't know quite how we've done it. I guess I've kind of forced us off of tangents a little bit more aggressively. This could be very
we could have spitballed a lot more stuff.
No, we're not having that. We could have gone on for 4 hours easy, so let's prevent that from happening. I don't want a giant bomb episode because we are not getting giant bomb money. So till that day where we can sit around and have lunch
and take a sip from my Alton Towers theme park cup. You could have had your sponsor here. You could have had it here for 3 hours of me drinking from a very large mug. Imagine that.
You could have done it on this one. It would have been smaller but more elegant.
You could have had it on so many areas of the screen that the listener or watcher, it would actually be so visible you'd be able to hear it. Like that's how much exposure you've missed right now. Dear potential sponsor.
Is that your closing thoughts, Nymaera, out of interest?
Put
him on the spot.
I mean,
it is now.
I mean, we have waited so long for these games right now that it's kind of it's been kind of hard trying to break out of this echo chamber with quarantine going on and only kind of talking to these guys about LJL and the people in Discord anyway. So we could come out of this completely wrong, and I'd be completely happy anyway because we get to see more games. Each one. Well,
no, in theory, one of us is right.
Yeah, in theory, one of us is right, but I could be completely wrong. And it would still be really fun because each of these teams would be a valid and worthy winner if they were to take it.
I think that's
it. That's me.
Okay, Initialize.
I think we've covered most of it. I'm pretty good. I'm just looking forward to the games at this point. It's been a long time. I think it's been an interesting task trying to pull analysis together with such a massive gap between series. And I think we're all pretty certain that actually we wouldn't be surprised to see any of these teams win.
Yeah, you can see how
and that makes it these 2 days, your semis into finals, 24 hours apart, is going to be huge. We'll be doing it live. We'll be there. Come join us because I think they're going to be killer. Not a 3-0. I said it's a 3-0, but maybe it won't be. Never know.
Well, regardless, we will be covering any and all of the action. As always, you can find this podcast on all of your major stream platforms, as well as it will be going on YouTube as well. We do have our own social media followings. You can find it below where our faces are, or you can find it in the show notes, as well as the official handles that we use across at the very bottom of the screen, or again in the show notes. As always, do keep yourself safe. Tell those around you that you love them and that you care and that you're thinking and you're washing your hands. You're not going to be a filthy animal. Like, let's be real. Don't take solo queue into the bathroom. Stop. Bad. No. Don't be feeding just because you wanna. Wash your hands, then you can go back to feeding. That's fine. But for myself, Nymaera and Initia1ise, we can't wait for these games to get started. And we will be bringing that action to you very shortly over the next few days. But with that all said, thank you so much for watching or listening, and have a lovely rest of your day.
Good matinee. Such a weeb.